Chapter 46:08. Lin Feng was astonished when he heard Mu Xiuhan's words. He had never thought that Mu Xiuhan would be friends with Di Jun and Tai Yi. After Mu Xiuhan's death, his soul had turned into a Yin spirit. Since then, he had been in a deep slumber and had never left. Although he had reappeared, there were many things that he didn't know about back then. Lin Feng said, later on Di Jun and Tai Yi joined forces to establish the heavenly court. Mu Xiuhan smiled and said, "It seems like they succeeded. However, you're wrong to say that they joined forces to establish the heavenly court. The heavenly court has existed since ancient times. They should have joined forces to establish the demonic court." Lin Feng smiled bitterly and said, "Some scriptures say that the heavenly court was established by Di Jun and Tai Yi. I think there's a reason for that." Lin Feng paused for a moment to organize his thoughts before he continued. Di Jun and Tai Yi united the undying world, which is unprecedented. The heavenly court is famous because of that. Many people think that the heavenly court was established by the two of them. If the scriptures are correct, I think they inherited the name of the heavenly court and didn't change it to the demonic court. That's very likely. Mu Xiuhan nodded. Lin Feng continued. In the beginning, Di Jun and Tai Yi ruled the heavenly court together. However, Tai Yi disappeared without a trace. From then on, Di Jun ruled the heavenly court alone. Maybe it's because he's monopolized power. As time goes by, the monster emperor Di Jun seems to have become a different person. He went from caring for the people and being strict with himself to being obstinate and self-opinionated. He was jealous of the virtuous, and in the end, he became a cruel and bloodthirsty tyrant. In addition, his son turned into a sun that roasted the earth, causing countless worlds to be destroyed due to the high temperature. The great shaman Ho Yi felt that the world was suffering, so he created the divine sun shooting art and the divine sun arrow. Ho Yi shot down 9 suns. Di Jun was furious and killed Ho Yi. In order to avenge Ho Yi, the shaman race fought a decisive battle against the heavenly court led by Di Jun. In the end, both sides suffered great losses. After that, the demon emperor Di Jun also disappeared. Some people said that the demon emperor Di Jun was killed, while others said that he passed away. There were all kinds of theories. The heavenly human race and the immortal race took control of the heavenly court. Di Jun's era came to an end. Mu Xiuhan heard Lin Feng's words and sighed. After a long time, he sighed. "I didn't expect them to end up like this. Demon Emperor Tai Yi is still all right. He has always been loved and respected by the demon race. However, Demon Emperor Di Jun's reputation is not so good. The demon race was at its peak, but because of Demon Emperor Di Jun's ruthlessness, the demon race was dragged into the abyss. Until now, the demon race has not recovered." Lin Feng said. Mu Xiuhan said, "When he was young, he was very ambitious. He hoped to lead the heavenly demon race to become stronger. He took it as his responsibility to revitalize the heavenly demon race." Lin Feng said, "He did it, but power changed him. People change." Mu Xiuhan nodded, then sighed and said, "Yes, people change." Mu Xiuhan retracted his thoughts. He didn't say anything else and continued walking toward the southern heavenly gate. Entering the heavenly court wasn't something that anyone could do. The heavenly court was heavily guarded. Anyone who entered or left the heavenly court would have their identity checked. Therefore, there was only one way for Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan to enter the heavenly court. That was to barge in. Lin Feng didn't know why Mu Xiuhan entered the heavenly court, but presumably he had his own motives. As for himself, he only needed to watch from the side. When the time came, the truth would be revealed. When they arrived at the southern heavenly gate, the guards saw Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan. However, they didn't go forward to interrogate them. After Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan stepped onto the southern heavenly gate, the guards stopped Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan. "Who are you? Do you have a token or a token?" The guard leader looked at Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan indifferently. Of course, they didn't have such things. However, at this moment, Mu Xiuhan's body exuded an extremely strange force. That strange force enveloped the group of people. Then, the group of people stood motionless on the spot, as though they were frozen by someone. Mu Xiuhan walked inside. Lin Feng came back to his senses and followed behind Mu Xiuhan. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel a little emotional. He didn't know what method Mu Xiuhan used to freeze those people. However, it was obvious that Mu Xiuhan didn't use the space Dao. If it was, Lin Feng would have sensed it long ago. After Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan passed through the southern heavenly gate, they entered the heavenly court. After they left, the guards came back to their senses. Their expressions were normal. They seemed to have forgotten that Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan had been here. It had to be said that Mu Xiuhan's methods were really powerful and strange. After entering the heavenly court, they were surrounded by floating immortal fog. In the immortal fog, there were many jade corridors. All kinds of corridors extended in all directions and intertwined with each other, leading to different places. From time to time, some beautiful fairies could be seen flying by. There were also cultivators in the heavenly court flying by. The heavenly court was very big. Many people didn't know each other. Therefore, no one suspected Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan's identities. After entering the heavenly court, Mu Xiuhan obviously had a purpose. He chose a direction and flew all the way there. Finally, they stopped at a place where cherry blossoms were in full bloom. There were many cultivators in other places, but there was no one in the place where the cherry blossoms were in full bloom. It didn't fit in with the other places. "What is this place?" Lin Feng asked. "A place I've been to in the past." Mu Xiuhan said. He was a little depressed. He thought of some things that happened here in the past. Even though countless years had passed, some things that happened back then were still unforgettable. Therefore, before he was completely lost, he chose to come here and take a look. Mu Xiuhan walked toward the cherry blossom forest. The cherry blossom forest covered an area of hundreds of acres. Every cherry blossom was planted in the deity land. The cherry blossoms here were different from the cherry blossoms outside. The cherry blossoms outside bloomed once a year. However, the cherry blossoms here were deity trees. They formed stamens once every 3,000 years. They bloomed once every 3,000 years. They withered once every 3,000 years. And now was the time when the cherry blossoms withered. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't see the cherry blossoms in full bloom. He only saw the bleak autumn wind in the garden. Mu Xiuhan walked step by step into the cherry blossom forest. Finally, he stopped in front of a pavilion. He looked at the pavilion for a long time, his gaze never leaving it. Chapter 46:09. Lin Feng did not disturb Mu Xiuhan and allowed him to reminisce about what had happened in the past. If Mu Xiuhan was willing to tell him about what had happened to him in the past, Lin Feng, of course, liked to be a listener. If Mu Xiuhan was not willing to talk, then Lin Feng could not do anything about it. Time passed. After a quarter of an hour, Mu Xiuhan came back to his senses and walked towards the pavilion. Nothing has changed here. It's still the same. Mu Xiuhan said, "Senior, were you familiar with this place in the past?" Lin Feng asked. "Yes, I was very familiar with it. I came here often. Now that I think about it, everything feels as unreal as the moon in the water and the flowers in the mirror." Mu Xiuhan sighed. His voice was still very low. It was obvious that he was deeply moved after coming here. What's so special about this place? Is it human? Lin Feng could not help but ask tentatively. In Lin Feng's opinion, anything, no matter how precious it was, would be hard to forget. Only people could be like this. Family, friends, or lovers. It was the season when cherry blossoms were in full bloom. I was invited by a friend to a small gathering she held here. She was the owner of this place. She was very beautiful as a fairy. Of course, I've seen a lot of beautiful women. I won't look at them in a new light just because of their looks. We bumped into each other a few more times, but each time we were just acquaintances. Until one day, I was invited by a friend to go to an ancient temple deep in the mountains to study the Great Tao. Occasionally, when we were relaxing, we would take a stroll in the mountain forest. The snowy mountain forest is very beautiful. That day, my friend had something to do and went out. I was alone in the mountain forest, admiring the snow. I didn't think I'd see her again. She's dancing in the snow. She's so pure and beautiful, said Lin Feng. She saw me and stopped. Then the two of us walked together in the snowy mountain forest, enjoying the beautiful snowy scenery. She told me that she likes snow because she was born during a snowstorm. That's why her father named her Qingxue. Ying Qingxue is her name. She likes both snow and cherry blossoms. Snow is pure, and so are cherry blossoms. We started to have more contact with each other. During this period of time, I resigned from the post of Commander of Lightning Corps and handed over the position of Commander of Lightning Corps to Han Tian. Han Tian did an excellent job, and I was able to rest assured. In the following years, I went to many places with Qingxue Ying. At this point, Mu Xiuhan looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Do you think I'm a person who lusts after women?" Lin Feng shook his head and said, "Love between a man and a woman is human nature. This is the most sincere love in the world, and it's impossible for people to part with it." That's right. No matter how strong your cultivation is, you can't escape love, Mu Xiuhan murmured. He then continued, "After that, Qingxue Ying invited me to her clan to meet her parents. I gladly agreed, but I didn't know that it was a huge trap." Hearing this, Lin Feng's heart trembled. Previously, Mu Xiuhan had said that he had been betrayed by someone and had died. Lin Feng felt that the person who had betrayed Mu Xiuhan was Qingxue Ying. She was the woman Mu Xiuhan had loved deeply. Lin Feng did not interrupt. He was a qualified listener, and he did not say anything. He just listened quietly. She approached me for a reason, because my heart gate was extraordinary. Many people had their eyes on it. However, my means were very terrifying. In that era, even though there were many strong cultivators, I still had a place in it. However, those who had their eyes on my heart gate naturally didn't have a good ending. The Ying clan was one of the top ancient clans in the celestial realm. Their clan had once produced a heaven master, and it was an unimaginably powerful clan. They wanted my gate of heart, but they knew that using forceful methods would be too difficult. Thus, they schemed against me step by step, and Qingxue's appearance led me step by step into the abyss. Mu Xiuhan sighed. Perhaps he still hadn't forgotten Qingxue. Lin Feng asked, "Senior, did you not notice anything amiss?" Lin Feng asked this because he felt that an expert like Mu Xiuhan would have a powerful spiritual sense and judgment. If Qingxue Ying had lied to him, he should have noticed it. She cultivated the emotionless Tao. I only found out about this later. To cultivate the emotionless Tao to its peak, she needs to fall in love first. Then, she needs to sever her emotions. Mu Xiuhan said. Lin Feng's expression changed slightly when he heard that. He finally understood why Mu Xiuhan hadn't noticed anything. It was because Qingxue had truly fallen in love with him when they were dating. Mu Xiuhan loved Qingxue very much. Qingxue also loved Mu Xiuhan very much. There weren't many people who cultivated the emotionless Tao. However, Lin Feng still had some understanding of this strange Tao. She treated you as her target to sever her gate of heart, Lin Feng asked after taking a deep breath. Yes, Mu Xiuhan nodded bitterly. When people who cultivated the emotionless Tao were in love, their love would be very passionate. They would love to the point that the world would collapse, and they would love to the point that the seas would dry up. However, when they severed their gate of heart, they would become extremely heartless. In order to succeed, they wouldn't hesitate to kill the person they loved the most. Although I'm very strong, I can't predict the future. Moreover, an ancient clan like that has an unimaginably strong foundation. They used the strength of their foundation to suppress me, and then they wanted to obtain the Gate of Heart from me. They didn't know what kind of treasure the Gate of Heart was. It was a treasure that could move at will. Therefore, it was an incorporeal treasure. If I didn't let it appear, it wouldn't appear, and they wouldn't be able to find it. They were very crazy and wanted to torture me to get it, but I didn't give up. In the end, they had no choice but to give up. That day, Qingxue came. She was very beautiful, just as beautiful as I knew her in the past. We chatted for a long time, and in the end, she used her sword to stab me in the chest. I just watched as she dug my heart out. My life ended just like that. Mu Xiuhan's expression was very bitter. He looked at Lin Feng and asked, "Tell me, isn't my life a joke?" Chapter 46:10. She was once invincible in heavenly earth. How powerful and terrifying was that? In the end, she ended up like this. It was indeed lamentable. Lin Feng said, "Is it wrong to believe in your lover?" "Yes, is it wrong?" Mu Xiuhan muttered to himself. When Lin Feng said that, he was surprised. Mu Xiuhan knew what Lin Feng's point of view was. Love itself was beautiful. It was also desirable. However, when there was a betrayer in love, the price was often extremely heavy. "Senior, do you hate her?" Lin Feng asked. "I used to hate her, but now I don't hate her anymore," Mu Xiuhan said. "Why?" Lin Feng asked doubtfully. "Because after all, she is someone I used to love," Mu Xiuhan said. When he said those words, his heart must be in pain, right? In fact, no matter who it happened to, it would be incomparably painful. How could such a thing be forgiven? It was naturally easy to say it out loud, but only one could know what one was thinking in their heart. This is a forbidden area. Who gave you the courage to trespass into it? A cold voice sounded. Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan turned their heads to look. A beautiful woman appeared. She looked coldly at Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan. Mu Xiuhan did not pay any attention to the beautiful woman. He was still reminiscing about the years that had passed. Lin Feng looked at the beautiful woman. He felt that the beautiful woman's expression was unfriendly. Back then, this place belonged to Qingxue. Perhaps after countless years, it had already changed owners? Was this beautiful woman the new owner of this place? "We entered this place by mistake." "Fairy, please calm down," Lin Feng said. "Reckless fool, go to hell." The beautiful woman's expression was cold as she blasted a palm towards Lin Feng. That palm contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. Lin Feng couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Who was this beautiful woman? How could she be so terrifying? She was probably even stronger than the divine heavenly king. The heavenly court was indeed full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Mu Xiuhan's figure swayed slightly before he arrived in front of Lin Feng and slammed his palm towards the beautiful woman. Bang! The two of them collided fiercely. Then, both of them took a step back. The woman narrowed her eyes and said, An expert like you is definitely not a nobody. Why have I never heard of you? Mu Xiuhan didn't answer the beautiful woman. Instead, he looked at Lin Feng and was about to ask Lin Feng to leave. However, Mu Xiuhan saw something that made him smile bitterly. Lin Feng actually took out a dagger and carved a line of words on the pavilion. Young Master Lin Feng was here. This was the content of this line of words. This pavilion was created from eternal divine wood. It has existed for billions of years and is branded with the aura of the Grand Tao. You actually dared to leave words on it. You deserve death. When the beautiful woman saw the words Lin Feng left on the pavilion, she almost died of anger. She leaped out and charged towards Lin Feng, wanting to turn Lin Feng into ashes. However, Mu Xiuhan stopped the beautiful woman. Although the beautiful woman was extremely strong, Mu Xiuhan was also extremely terrifying. Therefore, she couldn't break through Mu Xiuhan and get to Lin Feng's side. Lin Feng liked to take advantage of other people. With Mu Xiuhan next to him, Lin Feng had the perfect opportunity to act tough and take advantage of other people. After all, Mu Xiuhan would protect him no matter what happened. Lin Feng wasn't afraid at all. Lin Feng said, "Do you believe that I won't leave a line of words on your body? I'll write that I'm willing to be a servant for the rest of my life and serve my master, Lin Feng." Lin Feng? You're called Lin Feng? I know who you are. You're Lin Baiqian's son. No, aren't you in the Sin realm? Why are you in the heavenly court? You aren't real bodies of flesh and blood? At this moment, the female cultivator finally realized that something was wrong. Even though Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan looked like flesh and blood to the female cultivator because of Lin Feng's social status, the female cultivator was sure that Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan weren't flesh and blood. She didn't know what kind of method they had used to come to the celestial court. It sounded unbelievable. However, no matter how unbelievable it was, he had to believe that everything he saw with his own eyes was real. Mu Xiuhan pushed back the female cultivator with a palm strike, then used his magic power to wrap around Lin Feng and flew into the distance. The female cultivator's expression was extremely ugly. Actually, she hadn't heard the news of the Sacred Army's complete annihilation. However, Lin Feng and another powerful cultivator appeared in the heavenly court. This was enough to explain a lot of things. That person was also a sinner's blood. The female cultivator didn't chase because she knew that Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan weren't real bodies. There was no need to chase. So what if she caught up? She might as well spread the news and let others take action. The female cultivator's gaze swept past Mu Xiuhan and looked at Lin Feng. Then, she couldn't help but grit her teeth. For countless years, who dared to be so rude to her? However, Lin Feng dared to do so, which made the female cultivator very angry. "Kid, remember my name. I'm called the Mystic Yin Fairy. You better pray that you don't fall into my hands. Otherwise, I'll let you have a taste of what it's like to live a life worse than death." The female cultivator said coldly. Lin Feng shouted from afar, "Can you be more shameless? You're already so old, yet you still call yourself a fairy. Is your skin that thick? Even a dragon-slaying saber can't cut through your skin." Hearing this, the female cultivator flew into a rage. She couldn't wait to grind Lin Feng's bones to dust. She hurriedly issued an order. When the heavenly court's great general found out that someone had silently snuck into the heavenly court, his expression changed greatly. He quickly led the army to encircle Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan. However, Lin Feng and Mu Xiuhan's consciousness had already returned to their original position. They returned to the real world. "Kid, you really know how to cause trouble. You actually angered a true immortal to such an extent." Mu Xiuhan said with a smile. Lin Feng said, "It's best to anger her to death." Since she's a true immortal of the heavenly court, she's definitely not a good person. Mu Xiuhan nodded and said, I'm leaving. He stood up and looked into the distance. Hearing that Mu Xiuhan was leaving, Lin Feng's heart immediately surged with a strong sense of sadness. Mu Xiuhan was leaving. He would be like Senior Chu Moli, losing himself and dying in pain. This made Lin Feng extremely sad. However, Lin Feng was unable to save Mu Xiuhan. Practice cultivation. Well, live well. I know you really want the door of intentions, but it's not with me now. The door of intentions I can create is just an illusion. The door of intentions has no shape or form, but it has a spirit. After I died, the door of intentions left. Maybe it was lost in the celestial world. It's a treasure of the celestial teachers. It's destined to be with you. You can go to the celestial world to find it, said Lin Feng. Mu Xiuhan patted Lin Feng's shoulder and walked into the distance. Senior, have a safe journey. Chapter 46:11. Lin Feng's mood was very gloomy. He couldn't let go of Mu Xiuhan's matter for a long time. Mu Xiuhan was like a mirror to him. This mirror reflected some of the things that might happen to Lin Feng in the future. His later years were filled with uncertainties and terrifying curses. Of course, Lin Feng had always been an optimist. He quickly calmed down. The gate of will is in the celestial world. Where could it be? Lin Feng couldn't help but wonder. He was very interested in the gate of will. If he could obtain it, it would definitely be a great harvest. However, it clearly wasn't easy to obtain it. Fortunately, he knew the location of the gate of will. When it reappeared in the future, he could go look for it. For now, he had to fight steadily and surely in the undying world, one step at a time. He couldn't be in a hurry. In the following period of time, the 10 great rogue cultivators led their armies and subdued the Sin domain. Only a small portion of the Sacred Army's cultivator army managed to escape the Sin domain. The rest were all killed. Naturally, what happened in Sin realm couldn't be hidden from the world. News spread rapidly as if it had grown wings. When the news spread, it immediately caused a huge uproar. Before the war, most people didn't think highly of Lin Feng's Sinner Alliance. Many people thought that the Sinner Alliance would be destroyed and Lin Feng would die without a grave. However, after the war ended, everything that happened was too outrageous. It exceeded everyone's expectations. Sacred Heavenly King is a true immortal. How was he killed? I heard that the Sinner Alliance also has a true immortal. The enemy's true immortal joined forces with Lin Feng to kill Sacred Heavenly King. Can Lin Feng participate in a war of this level? Brother, you're too ignorant. Don't underestimate Lin Feng just because he's young. He's extremely terrifying. He's Lin Baiqian's son. How can he be simple? Moreover, he wields the Ho Yi Bao and the sun-slaying divine arrow. Rumor has it that he can utilize the power of the Ho Yi Bao and the sun-slaying divine arrow. This is extremely frightening. Thus, this person is most adept at long-range attacks. One careless mistake, and you will be killed by the Ho Yi Bao. But the Sacred Legion's numbers far exceed the Sinner Alliance's. Did the Sacred Legion just watch Sacred Heavenly King get besieged without helping? That doesn't make sense. It's said that Lin Feng found the legendary Lightning Legion and turned it into an army of undead. Lin Feng is now the commander of the Lightning Legion. The Lightning Legion's participation in the war completely changed the situation. The undead army of the Lightning Legion is very difficult to kill. Therefore, when the Lightning Legion joined the battle, the Sacred Legion couldn't even protect themselves. How could they help Sacred Heavenly King? So that's the case. I didn't expect so many things to happen. No wonder the Sinner Emperor wasn't afraid of the Sacred Legion. It turns out that he has absolute strength. I wonder if that true immortal is also a sinner's bloodline. What if he's a sinner's bloodline? I wonder if there are any more sinner's bloodline experts at this level. The Sacred Legion is one of the most elite legions under the Heavenly Emperor. Sacred Heavenly King is also the Heavenly Emperor's favorite general. Now that Sacred Heavenly King is dead and the Sacred Legion is destroyed, the Heavenly Emperor will definitely be furious. Perhaps he will send a new army to destroy the sinner capital. That is indeed a possibility. However, the Heavenly Emperor will definitely have some misgivings before doing so. First of all, the Heavenly Emperor has 18 legions under his command. These 18 legions all have their own missions. For example, the Sacred Legion that guards Sin Realm, the 3 legions that monitor the ancient demon region, the legion that guards the Eastern Evil Province, and so on. The 18 legions all have their own missions. Now that the Sacred Legion has been destroyed, the Heavenly Emperor won't be able to casually summon troops from other places. Does that mean the Heavenly Emperor doesn't plan to deal with Sin Realm? Of course not. Sin Realm is definitely a huge problem for the Heavenly Emperor. I'm guessing that the Heavenly Emperor will borrow the help of other realms to deal with Sin Realm. The Heavenly Emperor will probably summon troops from other realms to attack Sin Realm. Although the cultivator armies from other realms can't be compared to the 18 legions under the Heavenly Emperor's command, the cultivator armies from the other realms aren't weak either. It's very difficult to fight across realms because the journey is too long. Moreover, there are very few teleportation formations in the Undying Realm. Even the teleportation formations in the Undying Realm are small and can't transport an entire army. Therefore, it will take a very long time for an army to fight across realms. If you want to fight across multiple realms, it will take even longer. Therefore, if the Heavenly Emperor wants to summon an army, he will probably summon troops from the realms near Sin Realm. That's true. However, there are only 4 realms that can summon an army. North of Sin Realm is the vast and boundless extreme north. There are no forces there, so it's impossible to summon an army from there. To the east is the Black Sand region. The region master of the Black Sand region is the sworn brother of the Heavenly Emperor and is very loyal to him. He should be able to summon an army from there. To the southeast is the Chaos Sword region. The region master of the Chaos Sword region, Jian Shursan, seems to be loyal to the Heavenly Emperor on the surface, but in reality, he's disobeying the Heavenly Emperor on the surface. To the south is the Nine Deity region. The region master of the Nine Deity region is the region master of the Mystic Deity region. She has always had a cold relationship with the Heavenly Emperor. If he summons an army from her, she will probably do the same thing as the region master of the Chaos Sword region. To the southwest is the Weak Water region. The region master of the Weak Water region, Nalan Linghan, is very loyal to the Heavenly Emperor. He can summon an army from there. To the north is a part of the Ancient Demon region. The Ancient Demon region doesn't have a good relationship with the Heavenly Court. It's already good enough that they don't help Sin Realm. Don't even think about summoning an army from there. If that's the case, the Black Sand region, the Chaos Sword region, the Nine Deity region, and the Weak Water region will be able to summon an army. The Black Sand region and the Weak Water region will be the main forces. The Chaos Sword region and the Nine Deity region won't have a falling out with the Heavenly Emperor. If they have no choice but to summon an army, they probably won't do anything. Brother, your analysis is really thorough. It's admirable. The 4 regions will send an army to destroy Sin Realm. I wonder if they'll succeed. That's not clear. We don't know how strong Sin Realm is right now, so we'll have to wait and see. The Heavenly Emperor will probably summon real experts to support them. For example, a few true immortals. When the time comes, the Sinner's Blood Alliance will definitely be destroyed. The Emperor of the Sinner's Blood, Lin Feng will definitely die. Chapter 46:12. There were all kinds of discussions in the outside world. However, Lin Feng didn't pay too much attention to the outside world. Everything in the Sin realm was developing well. The entire Sin realm had fallen into Lin Feng's hands. Lin Feng's subordinates were guarding the various ancient cities, including many immortal veins, Lin Feng's subordinates. These immortal veins could provide an endless supply of immortal stones to the Sinner's Blood Alliance. After all, the cultivation resources the Sinner's Blood Alliance used every day was already an astronomical figure. In addition, Lin Feng sent people to the surrounding domains to inquire about the news of the armies in the surrounding domains. The Sinner's Blood Alliance naturally guessed this as well. Although the Heavenly Emperor had 17 legions as powerful as the Sacred Legion, the Heavenly Emperor couldn't easily mobilize them because once they were mobilized, there would be great trouble elsewhere. Therefore, the higher-ups of the Sinner's Blood Alliance believed that the Heavenly Emperor would mobilize armies from the surrounding domains to attack the Sinner's Blood Alliance. This was why Lin Feng sent people to observe the situation in the other domains. There weren't many people in these domains who were completely loyal to the Heavenly Emperor. Therefore, Lin Feng wasn't that worried if the other domains really joined forces to attack the Sinner's Blood Alliance. What worried Lin Feng was that the other side would mobilize several true immortals. Although there weren't many true immortals in the Undying Realm, there were still some. This was especially true in the Heavenly Court, where most of them were true immortals. Of course, Lin Feng also knew that the outside world would be suspicious of Mu Xiuhan's identity, including the Heavenly Emperor. These people would most likely think that Mu Xiuhan was also a Sinner's Blood Alliance expert. Since the Sinner's Blood Alliance already had a true immortal, would there be a second true immortal? Was there going to be a third true immortal realm expert? The cultivators from the major powers would definitely be suspicious of this matter. As long as they were suspicious of this matter, they would be apprehensive. If the Heavenly Emperor didn't dispatch a true immortal, then the domain lords of the other domains might not necessarily dispatch troops no matter how loyal they were to the Heavenly Emperor. After all, those domain lords weren't true immortals. They were basically quasi-true immortals. There might be experts in their clans who had reached this level, but they definitely wouldn't risk their lives for the Heavenly Emperor. After all, they were only born to live until the next epoch. They wouldn't be under the Heavenly Emperor's Blood Alliance's blood. At this stage, Lin Feng could think of two Heavenly Courts immortal. The first was to set up the 9-extinction immortal vanquishing formation passed down by the Celestial Master Path. This formation was extremely powerful and required 36 kinds of materials to set up. Its complexity was simply unimaginable. Lin Feng couldn't complete it alone. Therefore, Lin Feng asked Jiang Emo to gather all the spiritual formation masters of the Sinner's Blood Alliance. At the same time, he issued a decree to recruit top-notch spiritual formation masters with a large sum of money. Lin Feng asked these spiritual formation masters to assist him in setting up the formation. The second was to contact some top-notch experts. The top-notch experts Lin Feng could think of were the Red World Fairy, Senior Savage, and Senior Duguya. Of course, Lin Feng knew some other experts, such as the female Holy Spirit. The key was that he wasn't familiar with them, and they wouldn't help him. The only ones who were close to Lin Feng were the Red World, Fairy, Savage, and Duguya. There was no need to talk about the Red World Fairy. She had a complicated relationship with Lin Feng. The Red World Fairy couldn't avoid this either. Senior Savage was Lin Feng's Tao protector. Senior Duguya was his father's good brother and one of the top experts of the human race. He had even obtained an inheritance like the 6 paths of reincarnation. Therefore, one could imagine how powerful Senior Duguya's inheritance was. Lin Feng sent people to inquire about the Red World, Fairy, Duguya, and Savage. However, considering that their whereabouts were uncertain, Lin Feng also sent people to spread some news about the upcoming battle between the Sinner's Blood Alliance and the Heavenly Emperor's army. He hoped that they would come to help after receiving the news. Lin Feng and more than 200 spiritual formation masters worked together. After 3 months, they finally finished setting up the 9 extinction Immortal Vanquishing formation. After paying such a huge price, Lin Feng wasn't sure if the formation could deal with true immortal experts. After all, it was his first time setting up such a formation. On this day, the Poison Ancestor, Evil Dominator Saint, and the 2 Ghost Emperors came. After seeing them, Lin Feng was very happy. Ever since they entered the outer realm, they had been separated from him due to danger. This time, almost 60 years had passed. Seeing them again, Lin Feng was naturally very excited. Du Zhu, the heretic sovereign saint, and the 2 Ghost Emperors were also very excited. Their cultivation base increased very quickly. Du Zhu's cultivation had reached the Earth Immortal Realm. The heretic sovereign saint had also reached the Earth Immortal Realm. The 2 Ghost Emperors had reached the Human Immortal Realm. Young Master is an amazing person wherever he goes. How long has it been since he came to the Undying Realm? Du Zhu said with a smile. The heretic sovereign saint said, Hee, that's natural. Our young master is destined to become the Epic Lord. Stop boasting about me. After not seeing me for so many years, your boot-licking skills have increased faster than your strength. Lin Feng said in annoyance. Du Zhu and the heretic sovereign saint smiled embarrassedly. Lin Feng gave some loose immortal sources, human immortal sources, earth immortal sources, and other resources to Du Zhu, the heretic sovereign saint, and the 2 Ghost Emperors. These sources were no longer useful to the current Lin Feng. As for the celestial immortal and quasi-true immortal sources, Lin Feng gave them to the higher-ups of the Sinner's Blood Alliance. Now that Lin Feng had the sacred Heavenly King's true immortal source, even quasi-true immortal sources were useless to Lin Feng. Only sources above the true immortal level would be of great use to him. Hee, young master is still the best to us. You always think of us when you get good things. But don't worry, young master, when the battle starts, young master will know how powerful I and the Zombie Emperor are. We didn't waste our time all these years. Du Zhu said proudly. Oh, what kind of powerful methods do you have? Lin Feng asked curiously. It's a secret. There's no point in saying it now. Du Zhu grinned. Heretic sovereign saint, tell me, Lin Feng said. The heretic sovereign saint said. It's a secret. Young master will know when the time comes. Lin Feng couldn't help but roll his eyes. The evil Zun saint used to be an honest person, but since he had been with the Poison Ancestor, he had become so slippery. As expected, one is marked by the company one keeps. Chapter 46:13. The arrival of Du Zhu, evil sovereign saint, and the 2 Ghost Emperors made Lin Feng very happy. Lin Feng let them rest for the time being. Lin Feng planned to go into closed-door cultivation. He still hasn't refined the source of the divine Heavenly King. Therefore, Lin Feng planned to refine the source of the divine Heavenly King. If Lin Feng could refine the source of the divine Heavenly King, his cultivation would definitely improve greatly. At that time, Lin Feng's cultivation would increase dramatically. Of course, Lin Feng was extremely eager to increase his cultivation. Lin Feng entered the time-space and took out the source of the divine Heavenly King. The source of the divine Heavenly King was very powerful. This was the source of a true immortal expert. Such a source was simply a priceless treasure. If news of it were to spread out, countless people would go crazy for it. Lin Feng sat down cross-legged and started to circulate the immemorial dragon-esque elephant art. Following the circulation of the art, the source of the divine heavenly king was gradually absorbed by Lin Feng's body. The source of the divine heavenly king was relatively complete. The source of the divine heavenly king's source included soul energy. This was different from the source that Lin Feng obtained before. The source of the soul energy that Lin Feng obtained before dissipated. Therefore, he couldn't refine it. There was a reason why the souls of those cultivators dissipated. Because those cultivators weren't in charge of a force, they had restrictions placed on their souls. After they were killed, the restrictions would destroy their souls. This was to prevent others from searching for their memories after they died. However, the divine heavenly king was different. The divine heavenly king was a true immortal expert, the leader of the divine army, who had the qualifications to place a soul seal on him. It was always him who placed a soul seal on others. Therefore, the divine heavenly king's mind didn't have a soul seal. When he was killed, his soul was still very complete. Therefore, his source included the source of the grand Tao and the source of the soul. After Lin Feng completely refined the source of the divine heavenly king, Lin Feng's soul energy and cultivation level would be greatly improved. As time passed, the powerful source energy was gradually absorbed by Lin Feng's body. Lin Feng's soul level and his own cultivation level were constantly rising. Lin Feng's soul had long since broken through to the loose immortal realm. Although there hadn't been such a situation where the soul level had soared, Lin Feng's soul level had always been slowly and steadily rising. Now, Lin Feng's soul had reached the 5th level of the human immortal realm. After refining the divine heavenly king's soul, Lin Feng's soul level rose rapidly from the 5th layer of the worldly immortal stage to the earthly immortal stage. However, this didn't stop until Lin Feng's soul level reached the 5th layer of earthly immortal stage. After refining the divine heavenly king's soul origin, Lin Feng's soul level rose by 10 levels. This effect was too heaven-defying. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel excited. Lin Feng's cultivation level rose from the 1st layer of the Emperor Lord Realm to the 5th layer of the Emperor Lord Realm. Lin Feng's cultivation level rose by 4 levels. Although it wasn't as much as his soul level, Lin Feng was still very satisfied. After all, Lin Feng's accumulation was too great. Although it was difficult for his soul level to rise, it was far from being comparable to his own cultivation level. The difficulty of Lin Feng's cultivation level was absolutely rare in this world. After refining the same true immortal's soul origin, Lin Feng only rose by 4 levels. If it was someone else, perhaps they would have risen by more than 10 levels or even dozens of levels. Of course, although the increase in level was not particularly great, the increase in combat power was extremely great. Accumulating strength had its advantages. Although it was a little difficult to break through, it could still complete the challenge. Moreover, the achievements that one could achieve in the future were far from what others could compare with. After coming out of seclusion, Lin Feng sensed the increase in his cultivation level. His face couldn't help but reveal a pleasantly surprised expression. Lin Feng was naturally very satisfied with this increase. It would be great if he could kill a few more true immortal stage experts. At that time, he could refine their souls and perhaps break through to the true immortal stage. However, thinking about the difficulty of killing true immortal stage experts, Lin Feng shook his head and couldn't help but reveal a wry smile. Wanting to kill true immortal stage experts was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Lin Feng then checked on the Devil King insect and flying crimson demonic insect Queen's cultivation. As Lin Feng's 3rd incomparably powerful insect and 3rd powerful insect queen, Lin Feng was naturally very concerned about their situation. The Devil King insect had an extremely heaven-defying individual combat strength, just like Lin Feng's Emperor Archaic and Immemorial Ancestral insect. Their individual combat strength couldn't help but be amazed. On the other hand, the flying crimson demonic insect was a swarm of poisonous insects. Together with Lin Feng's primordial demon-refining insects and immortal devouring insects, they were absolutely terrifying. Lin Feng was very happy that the Devil King insect had completed its first transformation. Now, Lin Feng could summon the Devil King insect to fight. However, he didn't plan to do so right now because the Devil King insect's current combat strength wasn't enough to deal with Lin Feng's current enemies. Lin Feng needed to wait until the Devil King insect finished its second transformation before he could summon it to help. As for the flying crimson demonic insect queen, it had already begun laying eggs. It wouldn't be long before the eggs hatched into flying crimson demonic insects. Soon, he would have his third powerful insect swarm. When the time came, his third insect swarm would be able to erupt with heaven-defying combat strength. It was at this moment that Lin Feng suddenly noticed a violent fluctuation coming from the magic lotus. Lin Feng was very surprised, wondering what was happening to the world lotus. Lin Feng entered the world of the magic lotus. Shui Wei, come see me quickly. Swoosh! With a flash of light, a beautiful woman appeared. This woman was none other than the magic lotus's spirit, Shui Wei. Shui Wei slightly bowed to Lin Feng before asking, "Master, what are your orders?" Lin Feng asked, "Why is there such a powerful fluctuation coming from the magic lotus? What's going on inside the magic lotus?" Shui Wei replied, "This subordinate is currently fusing with the third world inside the magic lotus. That's why there is such a violent fluctuation." "Oh, fusing with the third world inside the magic lotus? If the magic lotus fuses with the third world inside the magic lotus, how powerful will it be?" Lin Feng asked curiously. Shui Wei replied, "It should be able to reach between the peak of the Earth immortal stage and the early stage of the Sky immortal stage. However, the exact level of power will only be known after the fusion is complete." Chapter 46:14. Lin Feng was shocked after hearing Shui use words. The magic lotus had fused with the third world of the magic lotus. How could it be so powerful? The strength of the magic lotus meant that he would become even more powerful. Lin Feng was naturally very happy. This was because in addition to his own battle strength, Lin Feng could also rely on his avatar, the magic lotus, the ruler's armor, and the golden dwarf in his dantian to improve his cultivation. His avatar's cultivation base had also improved by leaps and bounds. The 9 transformations immortal scripture had given his avatar an unimaginable boost. Additionally, his avatar was cultivating in the space of time. 1 year of cultivation in the space of time was equivalent to 10 years of cultivation in the outside world. Thus, his avatar's cultivation base had improved at a godly rate. Now, it had reached the 7th layer of the Earth immortal realm. This kind of improvement shocked Lin Feng. In fact, if Lin Feng had some understanding of the 9 orifices stone man, he wouldn't be so shocked. This was because when a 9 orifices stone man was born, it was basically at the true immortal realm. Therefore, the 9 orifices stone man was the most terrifying existence in the stone tribe because of its heaven-defying talents. However, Lin Feng's avatar was born early, so its strength was far from reaching this level. However, after millions of years of gestation, each of the 9 orifices stone man's acupoints contained extremely powerful energy. If it could refine this energy, its cultivation would naturally increase greatly. However, the key point was that this energy was very difficult to refine. In the beginning, the 9 orifices stone man's cultivation progress was very fast, but it wasn't particularly shocking. This was because the 9 orifices stone man's cultivation was very normal. However, after the 9 orifices stone man cultivated the 9 transformations immortal scripture, the energy in its body was opened up. After the avatar absorbed the energy, its cultivation naturally increased greatly. This speed of improvement shocked Lin Feng. With the passage of time, Lin Feng believed that the 9 orifices stone man would soon break through to the sky immortal realm, then the quasi-true immortal realm, and finally the true immortal realm. The golden dwarf in Lin Feng's dantian was an ability he obtained when his bloodline awakened. It was an ability passed down through the generations. The strength of the golden dwarf was related to Lin Feng's cultivation. The stronger Lin Feng's cultivation was, the more the golden dwarf's power, and the greater the effect it could provide to Lin Feng. Due to the ruler's armor being of an extremely high grade, one's cultivation base was required to utilize the power within the ruler's armor. Lin Feng asked Shuiyu, "It will take about a month." Shuiyu replied, "I will try my best to maximize the power of the fusion this time." Lin Feng said, "I will." Shuiyu replied, "Heavenly Emperor Palace." A white peacock flew back. He took on the appearance of the Heavenly Emperor. Although the Heavenly Emperor was a heavenly human cultivator, very few people knew that part of his bloodline originated from the demon race. The other part of his bloodline came from the demon race's white peacock race. His father was a heavenly human cultivator, and his mother was a white peacock race cultivator. The white peacock race was one of the most powerful bloodlines of the demon race, and they had a long history. In the eyes of countless races, the white peacock race was a powerful and prosperous force. But in the eyes of the heavenly human race, that was not the case. The lords of the 33 heavens in the heaven realm were all heavenly human and immortal race experts. They were the highest rulers in the heaven realm. The heaven realm was the highest level world in this era, and the 3 paramount realms revered the heaven realm. The heavenly human race and immortal race were the noblest races in this era. In the eyes of the heavenly human race's descendants, only those with pure bloodlines were worthy of being nurtured by their families. What was a pure bloodline? This meant that the children of the heavenly human tribe, or the children of the heavenly human tribe, and the immortal tribe would have the purest bloodlines. Therefore, even though the heavenly emperor's mother was from the noble white peacock race. However, when he was young, he was still mocked by many of his peers in the family. Many people scolded him for having a lowly bloodline, and that his mother was from a lowly race. The heavenly emperor was humiliated when he was young, and he swore to become an expert. In order to become a peerless expert, he would do anything. He even killed his mother in order to break through to the true immortal realm. That was because his mother had become his heart tribulation. In order to become a true immortal, one had to pass the heart tribulation. There were 2 ways to pass the heart tribulation. The first was to rely on one's strong willpower to kill the heart tribulation. The second was to kill the person who caused the heart tribulation. This way, the heart tribulation would no longer exist. The first method was very difficult. It was very difficult to succeed. The second method was relatively easier. It was just that the second method required him to kill his own mother. But in order to become stronger, the heavenly emperor chose the second method. He did not want to gamble on the first method. Perhaps it was the many experiences when he was young that completely changed the heavenly emperor. It made the heavenly emperor become so heartless. Of course, he was not the heavenly emperor at that time. Becoming the heavenly emperor was something that happened later. Now, the heavenly emperor already knew about the sin realm, so he quickly returned to the heavenly emperor palace. Men, the heavenly emperor said with a gloomy expression. Your Majesty, the general who had been waiting outside walked in. Order the Black Sand region, the Chaos Sword region, the Nine Deities region, and the Weak Water region to mobilize 3 million cultivator troops each. Then, the 4 region lords will personally lead the troops to the Sin realm. At the same time, order the Pan-Yun Immortal Venerable and the War God Shur-Tion, 2 true immortal level experts to the Sin realm to support the cultivator troops of the 4 regions. The heavenly emperor said with a cold expression, Yes. The general replied. Then the heavenly emperor stretched out his right hand, and an energy ball appeared in his right hand. Inside the energy ball, a saber and a sword floated. One of these 2 treasures was called the Demon Slaughtering Saber, and the other was called the Immortal Slaying Sword. These were 2 unimaginable treasures. The Demon Slaughtering Saber was a quasi-ancient demonic treasure, and the Immortal Slaying Sword was a quasi-ancient killing treasure. These 2 treasures surpassed immortal treasures. Their power was boundless. But this was not the most important thing. The most important thing was if these 2 treasures were used together, they could form a resonance between the saber and the sword. Once the resonance was formed, the power of these 2 treasures would reach the level of a true ancient weapon. One had to know that if the power of an ancient weapon could be completely unleashed, it could instantly destroy a great world. Hand the Demon Slaughtering Saber and the Immortal Slaying Sword to the Pan-Yun Immortal Venerable and the War God Shur-Tion. Tell them to bring back the head of Lin Baitian's son. The heavenly emperor said coldly. Then, the energy ball that sealed the 2 treasures flew to the general. This subordinate obeys. The commanding general put away the energy balls that sealed the 2 treasures and acknowledged the order. Then, he quickly got up and passed on the heavenly emperor's order. Chapter 46:15. Although Lin Feng had sent people to inquire about the Red World Fairy, Senior Savage, and Senior Duguya, they had yet to show up. This left Lin Feng somewhat helpless. Their whereabouts were unpredictable, and if they did not want to show up, no one would be able to find them. However, Lin Feng did not give up. He continued to send people to search for their whereabouts. At the same time, he spread some news about the Sin realm, hoping that they would come after hearing the news. On this day, Lin Feng was cultivating. Suddenly, he opened his eyes as if he sensed something. Lin Feng had a very strong feeling that someone had come and that someone was secretly watching him. Lin Feng walked out of his room and went to the courtyard. He saw a familiar figure, Senior Duguya. As his father's follower and good brother, Senior Duguya and Senior Savage could be considered Lin Feng's Tao protectors. Now, they were also Lin Feng's closest relatives in the Undying Realm. Lin Feng was very excited to see Senior Duguya. He had not seen Senior Duguya for almost 100 years. Uncle Dugu, I finally meet you in the Undying Realm. This is great, said Lin Feng while walking towards them. He was extremely excited. Duguya could not help but smile. Yes, it's great to be able to meet you in the Undying Realm. You followed in your father's footsteps and came to the Undying Realm. Back then, your father rose to prominence in the Undying Realm. Later on, he went to the world where time reversed and became a true unparalleled powerhouse. Senior, do you know where the world of time reversal is? Lin Feng curiously asked. He was very curious about that world. What kind of world was it? I don't know where the world of time reversal is. However, if fate wills it, in the future, you might be able to find out where the world of time reversal is and what kind of world it is, Duguya said. Lin Feng felt a little regretful, but he quickly composed himself and asked, Senior, have you been well in the Undying Realm all these years? Everything is going well. Your growth speed is much faster than I expected. If your father were to see you now, he would definitely be extremely gratified. Duguya said. Father, Lin Feng murmured. His heart was filled with endless longing and worry, because Lin Feng knew that his father had been infected by the seed demon. He was extremely worried. I received a letter from your father some time ago. Duguya said. What? A letter from my father? Is that true? Lin Feng's face revealed an expression of disbelief. Of course it's true. Duguya nodded. Where is father? Lin Feng asked urgently. Heaven Realm. His current situation wasn't particularly ideal. Because of the seed demon, he was sometimes clear-headed and sometimes bedeviled. If he went completely bedeviled, he would completely lose himself. When he sent me the letter, he might have sensed my presence. That's why he contacted me. Duguya said, Let's go to Heaven Realm to find father. Uncle Dugu, take me to Heaven Realm to find father. Lin Feng said. He missed his father very much. Ever since his father had left the clan, Lin Feng hadn't seen him again. It had been around 150 years. He has already left Heaven Realm, but he didn't tell me where he was going. Duguya said, How could that be? Lin Feng's expression became extremely unsightly. He had finally found some clues about his father, but in the blink of an eye, he had lost them again. For Lin Feng, this was extremely cruel. He really can't stay in one place for too long. Now, apart from controlling the seed demon in his body, he also has to find the specific location where your mother is being sealed. It's not easy for him. The only thing to be happy about is that the seed demon in his body hasn't been fully activated yet. Otherwise, the situation would be out of control. I understand that you want to help him, but you have to increase your own cultivation. Even though your current cultivation isn't weak, it's still far from enough. Duguya said in a heavy tone. Lin Feng's voice was also heavy. He knew his own strength. Even though it seemed like he was very strong, Lin Feng knew that he was still far from being able to compete with the strongest cultivators, let alone the mastermind behind the scenes. If he wanted to help his father, he had to increase his own cultivation. Otherwise, there was no possibility at all. If he rashly tried something he couldn't do, he would just be courting death. Why didn't father send me a letter? Lin Feng sighed. He really wanted to receive a letter from his father. He wants to protect you. He's too big of a target right now. The mastermind behind the scenes doesn't know about you yet. If he knows about you, he might attack you. Duguya said. Has the mastermind behind the scenes made a move? Lin Feng asked. Duguya shook his head and said, I don't think so. They're hiding in that world and won't make a move easily. The people who attacked your father should be their lackeys. Even so, they're still terrifying enough. They're all existences that no one dares to provoke. Lin Feng nodded with a heavy expression. Strength. Strength. Lin Feng desperately wanted to increase his strength. How good would it be if he could enter that world where time was reversed? Who knows, he might be able to increase his strength quickly. But where was that world where time had been reversed? No one knew where the time-reversed world was. Therefore, they couldn't enter it. Perhaps it was just as Duguya had said. Whether or not he could enter that world in the future depended on whether he had the opportunity. If he had the opportunity, he might be able to enter that world. If he didn't have the opportunity, he might never be able to enter that world. Lin Feng and Duguya chatted for a long time. Duguya was Lin Feng's senior, Lin Feng's family, and one of the closest people to Lin Feng. Therefore, he could tell Duguya many things that he couldn't tell his subordinates and friends. Duguya's arrival boosted Lin Feng's confidence. Meanwhile, the domain lords of the Black Sand region, Nine Deities region, Chaos Sword region, and Weak Water region had all received orders from the Celestial Emperor. The domain lords of the Black Sand region and Weak Water region were loyal to the Celestial Emperor. Naturally, they wouldn't hesitate to mobilize their armies to deal with Lin Feng. However, the domain lords of the Chaos Sword region and Nine Deities region were vassals, and their relationship with the Celestial Emperor was very cold. They didn't want to send troops. However, considering that the Celestial Emperor had sent 2 genuine immortals with ancient weapons, the 2 domain lords discussed with their elders and finally decided to send troops. If they didn't agree, they were worried that the Celestial Emperor would be furious. At that time, they would offend the Celestial Emperor completely. They didn't want to completely fall out with the Celestial Emperor. Therefore, the 4 domains gathered 3 million troops each. From 4 directions, like heavenly soldiers and generals, they quickly flew toward the Sin domain. Chapter 46:16. They have mobilized their troops. Black Sand region, Chaos Sword region, Nine Deity region, and Weak Water region have sent their troops to Sin domain. The 4 great forces have gathered a total of 12 million troops. What a terrifying force. Now, the 4 great forces must want to completely destroy Sin domain. Aside from the 12 million troops, the Celestial Emperor has also sent Immortal Sovereign Coiling Cloud and War God Shirtion. I heard that the Celestial Emperor gave the Demon Slaughtering Saber and Immortal Slaying Sword to the Immortal Sovereign Coiling Cloud and War God Shirtion. Oh my God! When these 2 treasures are used together, it's equivalent to an ancient weapon. How terrifying is that level of treasure? Not to mention, the cultivator controlling these 2 supreme treasures is a true immortal. Once these 2 supreme treasures are activated, just how unimaginable would their power reach? Yeah, it seems like the Celestial Emperor is determined to destroy the Sinner's Blood Alliance. Of course, the Celestial Emperor is determined to destroy the Sinner's Blood Alliance. Otherwise, where will his face go? At this very moment, countless cultivators in the various regions of the Undying Realm were discussing the 4 region lords leading their armies to the Sin realm. This matter caused a huge uproar. It was no wonder this matter caused such a huge commotion. Of course, there was a reason for this. First of all, although the undying world wasn't peaceful and wars broke out from time to time, those wars were nothing compared to the war between the Sinner Alliance and the Sacred Legion. Not to mention, the Sacred Legion was annihilated. It was one of the most elite legions under the Celestial Emperor. The annihilation of the Sacred Legion made everyone pay more attention to the Sinner Alliance. Second of all, the Sinner's Blood Alliance clearly had true immortals as well. A battle between true immortals was extremely rare. Last time, Lin Feng had used the Ho Yi Bao and Sunslaying Divine Arrow to kill the sacred Heavenly King with the help of the Sinner's Blood Alliance's true immortals. It had been many years since a true immortal had died in the Undying Realm. Now, a true immortal had died. What kind of commotion was this? This time, the Celestial Emperor had sent 2 true immortals. They were all at the peak of their prime, and were different from the divine Heavenly King. Although they were both true immortals, the divine Heavenly King was old. Compared to his peak, his battle prowess had actually declined greatly. Therefore, this could be one of the important reasons why the divine Heavenly King was killed. As for the Coiling Cloud, Immortal Venerable, and the War God Shirtion, they were at the peak of their lives. In addition, the 2 of them had obtained the 2 supreme treasures, the Devil Slaughtering Saber and the Immortal Slaying Sword. Naturally, they were full of confidence. That was why everyone wanted to see how this battle would turn out. Would Lin Feng and the Sinner's Blood Alliance's true Immortal Stage expert win? Only the Immortal Venerable Pan Yun and War God Shirtion would be able to obtain the final victory. In the end, the aftermath of this battle would have a huge impact. If Lin Feng's side was defeated, countless Sinner's Blood descendants would die, and the sinner's blood would no longer be a threat. And if Lin Feng's side won, Sin Realm's power would definitely be strengthened further. After being heavily injured twice in a row, the Heavenly Emperor might have no choice but to acknowledge Sin Realm's position. And at that time, Lin Feng could be considered to have completely established himself in the Undying Realm. Sin Capital. Spies from all over reported that Lin Feng was very clear on the matter of the 4 domain lords leading their armies to Sin Realm. At this time, Kong Tian said, "The 4 domain lords each lead an army of 3 million, which adds up to a total of 12 million soldiers. If these 12 million soldiers are allowed to gather together, it will be extremely disadvantageous for us. Therefore, I suggest that we send an army to intercept them and prevent them from gathering together. What do you think of this idea, Lord Alliance Lord?" Many people frowned as they pondered over Kong Tian's words. They were considering whether this method was feasible or not. Lin Feng shook his head and said, "No, we don't have enough people. Although more and more cultivators have joined our Sinner's Blood Alliance recently, we only have 2 million people, while the enemy has 12 million. That's 6 times our strength. Each of their armies consists of 3 million soldiers. Even if we send a portion of our forces to intercept them, we have to consider all possible scenarios. We also have a large army stationed in Sin Capital, so we can't send too many people. If we don't have enough people, how are we supposed to stop them?" Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but nod. It was indeed, as Lin Feng said. How difficult would it be to stop the enemy? Lin Feng said, "During this time, I will continue to reinforce Sin Capital's great formation with Jiang Mo and the others. When the time comes, we will be able to defend Sin Capital and set up many offensive formations. These formations are specifically designed to attack the Dragon Knights and Abyssal Trolls. The Dragon Knights and Abyssal Trolls' attacks are too powerful, and they are the main force in breaking the formations. The reason they were able to break through the formations so quickly last time was due to many reasons, but they were also closely related to the Dragon Knights and Abyssal Trolls. If we can quickly eliminate the Dragon Knights and Abyssal Trolls, we will be able to hold on for a longer time. The longer Sin Capital is broken through, the more the enemy's army will be exhausted. Moreover, they have marched for a long time to reach Sin Capital, so they are already very tired. If we delay them for a bit longer, they will be even more exhausted. Although they have the advantage in numbers, they will be exhausted. Although they have the advantage in numbers, their combat strength will be greatly reduced. On the other hand, although we can't compare to them in numbers, we can wait patiently for them to exhaust themselves. In this battle, we won't necessarily lose. That's right. We will definitely be able to defeat them." The higher-ups of the Sinner's Blood Alliance said one after another. Previously, Lin Feng had led everyone to destroy the Sacred Legion. Therefore, everyone's confidence was greatly boosted. Subconsciously, everyone believed that the army of Yin spirits would appear again to help, and Mu Xiuhan would also appear to help Lin Feng. Lin Feng had yet to tell them that Mu Xiuhan and the army of Yin spirits had left. This was because talking about this before the great battle was really damaging to their morale. During the great battle, if they could not control the situation, talking about this matter would instead cause everyone to burn their boats and fight to the death. 3 months later, rumble, 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 rumble. Even the void was shaking violently. The army was densely packed, covering the sky and the sun as they flew quickly toward Sin Capital. Moreover, they could already see Sin Capital from afar. Woo, 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 the horns of the city of Sin began to sound. Countless people were alarmed. Lin Feng climbed up the city tower and looked at the army in the distance. He could not help but take a deep breath. The second great battle was about to erupt. This battle was even more important. It would determine whether the Sinner's Blood Alliance could truly control Sin Domain. This battle would be lost. The Sinner's Blood Alliance would be destroyed. He might also die. This battle would be won. The Sinner's Blood Alliance would truly control Sin Domain and become one of the top forces in the undying world. Chapter 46:17. The momentum of an army of 12 million cultivators was simply too great. The crowd was so dense that one couldn't see the end of it. Anyone who saw such a scene would feel fear and trepidation. The horn of war had been blown, and both armies were ready for battle. Lin Feng, you brat, come out and let this war god see if you have 3 heads and 6 arms. If not, how could a mere junior like you stir up so much trouble in the undying realm? At this moment, a cold voice sounded. The person who spoke was a tall and sturdy man who was about 3 meters tall. This man was one of the 2 true immortals, War God Stoneheaven. He was from the War God clan. The War God clan was one of the top clans in the undying realm, and they were loyal to the Heavenly Emperor. Who are you? Tell me your name. You are Lin Feng. This young master, never kill nameless people. Lin Feng stood on the city gate tower and sneered. You are Lin Feng? War God Stoneheaven glared at Lin Feng and sneered. Junior, you are truly arrogant. After we break through the city, this seat will tear your body apart and eat your flesh. War God Stoneheaven couldn't help but lick his lips. War God Stoneheaven's cruel personality was quite famous in the undying realm because he liked to eat human flesh. This hobby was so cruel that the Heavenly Emperor had even reprimanded him. However, War God Stoneheaven didn't care and continued to do as he pleased. Later, I will cut off your dog head and give it to the Heavenly Emperor as a gift. Lin Feng sneered. Being looked down upon by Lin Feng made War God Stoneheaven furious. He couldn't wait to eat Lin Feng's flesh. Then he would drink Lin Feng's blood. Attack the city. War God Stoneheaven waved his hand, and the war drums of the 4 regions' allied army began to beat. Next, the densely packed Dragon Knights quickly flew above Sin City. These Dragon Knights attacked the great formation of Sin City from the sky. Roar! An earth-shaking roar was heard. Rumble! 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 The earth trembled as the Abyss Trolls pushed the broken dragon chariot towards the direction of Sin City. Clang! 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 Those Abyssal Trolls had boundless magic power, and the dragon chariot battering dragon chariot slammed into the defensive barrier again and again. Every collision would cause the earth to tremble and the mountains to shake. The army of Dragon Knights above also unleashed all kinds of attacks. The densely packed attacks came crashing down. In an instant, it bombarded the great array above Sin City. Activate the attack formation and destroy the Dragon Knight army and the Abyssal Trolls, Lin Feng ordered. Jiang Mo was leading a group of spiritual array masters on standby. Now that he heard Lin Feng's order, he immediately activated the attack array that he had set up beforehand. All kinds of runes intertwined, and those runes contained extremely terrifying power. The runes swept towards the army of Dragon Knights above, and the Abyss Trolls outside the Sin City. Meanwhile, the dragon-breaking crossbow was taken out. The dragon-breaking crossbow shot out one arrow after another. Under the cooperation of the runes and the dragon-breaking crossbow, a large number of Dragon Knights, giant dragons, and Abyss Trolls were killed. Rise to an altitude of 10,000 meters and attack. The immortal Pan, Yun, said with an indifferent expression. This person was a thin middle-aged man. At first glance, one could tell that he was an extremely shrewd person. After his fate was announced, the army of Dragon Knights began to quickly rise into the sky, and then reached a position of about 10,000 meters. The attack formation that Lin Feng and the others had set up before could at most cover an area of 10,000 meters. After the arrows shot out by the dragon-breaking crossbow reached 10,000 meters, the power was greatly reduced, although it would be easily destroyed by the army of dragon knights. After the army of dragon knights rose to an altitude of 10,000 meters, their attacks bombarded the great array. There was no way to compare the power of their attacks to before. However, the army of dragon knights had a tacit understanding, and their attacks were almost synchronized. Therefore, their attacks fused together in midair. When they fused together, their attacks became extremely terrifying. Therefore, when the combined attack of the army of dragon knights bombarded the great array, it was still able to cause great damage to the great array of Sin City. Guard army, protect the abyss trolls. The immortal Pan Yun continued to give orders. Immediately, a large number of cultivators flew out. Each cultivator was holding a shield. Every 100 cultivators formed a team. A team was responsible for protecting a living abyss troll. Originally, the army had mobilized 3,000 abyss trolls. In the previous few waves of attacks, Lin Feng's side killed about 400 abyss trolls. In other words, now there were still about 2,600 abyss trolls. The other side had dispatched 260,000 cultivators to protect these 2,600 abyss trolls. Those cultivators' shields were connected together, forming a shield formation. After the shield formation was formed, their defense was greatly increased. When a large number of dragon-breaking crossbow arrows shot out, they were all blocked by the shield formation. When the formation runes condensed by the attack formation swept over, they were also blocked by the shield formation. Clearly, before coming to Sin City, the immortal Pan Yun must have analyzed the details of the last time the Sacred Army attacked Sin City. At that time, the Sacred Army had suffered heavy losses in order to break through the defenses of Sin City. The immortal Pan Yun had learned his lesson. He had carefully analyzed the strategy. He had to admit that the immortal Pan Yun's method was excellent. The army of dragon knights above constantly attacked the great array above Sin City. At the same time, the abyssal demon pushed the dragon chariot against the Sin City's defensive barrier. If this continued, it wouldn't take long for the Sin City's defensive barrier to be broken. Lin Feng's expression couldn't help but become unsightly. The other side was truly a wily old fox. Hee, young master, don't worry. I have a way to deal with them, Du Zhu said sinisterly. Hearing this, Lin Feng's eyes couldn't help but light up slightly. He asked, "How do you plan to deal with these guys?" "Use poison," Du Zhu said. "Use poison?" Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. He said, "They definitely have antidotes. If we use poison, I'm afraid we won't be able to deal with them at all." Chapter 46:18. After hearing Du Zhu's words, Lin Feng smiled. If it was really as Du Zhu said, the poison released by Du Zhu would naturally be of great use. "There's no time to lose. Let's do it now," Lin Feng said. "Yes, young master," Du Zhu replied. Then Du Zhu began to chant an incantation and use his poison technique. Ever since Du Zhu fused with the true immortal level poison cultivator's source, the poison gas released had become colorless and odorless, so ordinary people would not be able to detect it at all. For example, now, Du Zhu began to release poison, a powerful poison. It was released by Du Zhu. Not long after, the cultivators who were protecting the abyss trolls began to feel dizzy. After about 10 breaths of time, the cultivators began to vomit blood. Then, a large number of cultivators directly fell to the ground, unable to support themselves at all. When they fell to the ground, they were already dead. The abyss trolls were huge in size, so their resistance to poison was also higher. However, it was not to say that the Abyss Trolls were not affected in any way. In fact, the Abyss Trolls were also greatly affected. The Abyss Trolls could not help but roar in pain. Many of the Abyss Trolls pounded their chests hard. Not long after, the Abyss Trolls that were 1,000 meters tall also fell to the ground with a loud bang, and then died. At the same time, the Dragon Knights and dragons in the sky also inhaled a large amount of poison. Roar! The dragons let out long and resonant roars, then began struggling violently. The dragons were in great pain. If it were not for the fact that they inhaled relatively less poison in the sky, these dragons would have died long ago. But the Dragon Knights were not so lucky. The Dragon Knights' poison resistance was obviously far inferior to the dragons, so they were poisoned to death, their corpses falling directly on the dragons' backs. The dragons flapped their wings and struggled in the void. Not long after, the dragons fell from the sky one by one. Soon, those dragons were poisoned to death. After seeing this scene, Lin Feng could not help but be shocked. Du Zhu's poison technique was indeed terrifying, as expected of someone who had fused with the source of a true immortal-level poison cultivator. But Lin Feng guessed. Now, Du Zhu had not completely refined the source of the poison cultivator. Otherwise, Du Zhu's battle strength might be even more terrifying. What happened? What's going on? Seeing a large number of Dragon Knights, dragons, Abyss Trolls, and the Cultivator army protecting the Abyss Trolls died tragically. The Cultivator army of the allied army of the 4 territories was in a complete panic. That was an army of several 100,000, yet they died one after another in a short period of time. This was too terrifying. Although the allied army of the 4 territories had 12 million soldiers, they could not withstand such deaths, not to mention 12 million. Even if they had 120 million, it would not have been enough to kill them. Poison. The enemy released poison. At this time, a sky immortal expert who was proficient in the Tao of poison said, "Spirit poison, exalted immortal, you said they were poisoned to death? There is actually such a terrifying poison in this world, and it is colorless and odorless?" Immortal exalted Pan Yun asked with a gloomy expression. He had originally hoped that the Dragon Knights and Abyss Trolls would be able to quickly break through the great formation of Sin City. But now his hopes had been dashed. He had originally thought that he had calculated everything. His battle plan was incomparably meticulous, and this battle would definitely be a decisive victory. But now he knew that things were not as simple as he had imagined. The battle had just begun, and they had already lost hundreds of thousands of troops. Even to them, such a loss was extremely heavy. Of course, there was one thing that infuriated immortal exalted Pan Yun, and that was the problem of face. Pan Yun, immortal exalted Pan Yun, was injured right from the start, and this made him feel as though he had been slapped in the face. "Damned brat, when I catch him, I will definitely tear him to pieces." Pan Yun, immortal exalted Pan Yun, glared at Lin Feng fiercely. At this moment, the Cultivator army of the Sin Blood Alliance was cheering, and their morale shook the heavens. Lin Feng ordered Du Zhu to continue releasing poison against the Cultivator army of the 4 Territory Alliance. The Cultivator army of the 4 Territory Alliance was also worried about the poison released by Du Zhu, and so they quickly retreating tens of li. Such a long distance. Du Zhu's poison was no longer effective. "Spirit poison, exalted immortal, do you have any methods to neutralize the enemy's poison?" Pan Yun, immortal exalted Pan Yun asked. Without waiting for Spirit poison, exalted immortal to speak, War God Shi Tian said, "We have all prepared antidote immortal pills. If we consume them, we will not be afraid of the poison." Pan Yun, immortal exalted Pan Yun, was speechless. So many people had died, and none of them had consumed antidote immortal pills at that time. Some people must have suspected that they had been poisoned and consumed antidote immortal pills, but they still died. This meant that antidote immortal pills were useless. Pan Yun, immortal exalted Pan Yun, had always thought that war god Shirtian was a man of courage but no brains, and so he looked down on war god Shirtian. Of course, Pan Yun, immortal exalted Pan Yun, was a man of deep thoughts, and naturally he would not speak his mind, no matter how much he looked down on war god Shirtian. War god Shirtian was still a true immortal cultivator. This was an indisputable fact, and an expert of this level could not be offended. Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal said, "Lord Shirtian, you may not know, but the enemy's poison is extremely terrifying. Ordinary antidote, immortal pills, are probably useless." War god Shirtian said, "Then think of a way to deal with it." Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal said, "Now that the poison has spread out, the surrounding 15 kilometers is filled with powerful poison. However, we can't see this poison. I have a treasure, and it's called the detoxification pearl. Everything in the world has a counter, and even the most powerful poison has a counter. This subordinate plans to use the detoxification pearl to see if it can expel the poison released by the enemy. Good. Go quickly and return quickly." Pan Yun, immortal exalted Pan Yun, said, "Yes, this subordinate will go right away." Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal replied, and then quickly flew in the direction of Sin City. 10,000 cultivators were dispatched to protect his safety. When Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal was 15 kilometers away from Sin City, he stopped. Then he began to chant an incantation, and when the incantation was finished, a supreme treasure flew out. It was a fist-sized pearl. This should be the detoxification pearl that Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal had mentioned before. Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal sent his magic power into the detoxification pearl, and immediately the detoxification pearl shone with holy light. That dazzling holy light shone in all directions. Chapter 46:19. The Detoxification Pearl. Duzu stood on top of the city gate tower. When he saw the detoxification pearl hovering above Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal, his expression turned extremely unsightly. Clearly, Duzu knew about the detoxification pearl. It was no wonder. Duzu was an expert in using poisons, so there was nothing that could counter him. The poison ancestor naturally wanted to make a thorough investigation. The detoxification pearl was a great counter to Duzu. Now that his opponent had taken out the detoxification pearl, Duzu knew that things had taken a turn for the worse. Sacred light illuminated the world, gradually dispersing the poison that permeated the area. "Young master, the poison is quickly dispersing. The enemy has a treasure that counters my ability," Duzu said. Lin Feng nodded. "Don't worry. I've already used the poison to destroy the Dragon Knights and the Abyss Demons, as well as hundreds of thousands of cultivators. That's enough." Spirit Poison Exalted Immortal looked in the direction of Sin City, a sinister glint in his eyes. He then sent someone to pass on the order to lead the army here. The messenger quickly left, and before long, the army of the four regions came charging again. Perhaps because he was worried that Duzu would release more poison, he didn't put the detoxification pearl away to prevent future trouble. The detoxification pearl continued to hover above him. "Attack! Attack with all your might!" Immortal Sovereign Coiling Cloud shouted gloomily. There was no other way. They could only force their way through. A portion of the cultivators flew into the air and attacked the great formation above Sin City. The rest began to attack the city from the front. A large number of cultivators charged forward fearlessly. Arrow formation, shoot them to death. Lin Feng ordered. Numerous cultivators wielded giant bows and shot arrows at the sky. There were simply too many arrows, so many that it was practically impossible to count them all. Many cultivators were killed, but there were also a large number of cultivators who charged to the front of the great formation and attacked it fiercely. Big Zombie, it's your turn to shine. Du Zhu looked at the heretic sovereign holy and smiled. Lin Feng couldn't help but be curious. He wondered what kind of technique the evil sovereign saint could unleash. In Corp's hand, the evil dominator saint chanted an incantation and unleashed an extremely powerful divine ability. After this divine ability was displayed, suddenly, palms emerged from the ground one after another. They were densely packed and innumerable. Those hands grabbed onto the ankles of the 4 Territory Alliance cultivators. Sharp nails pierced their skin. The poison invaded their bodies. All of a sudden, the cultivators fell to the ground, dead. Although the stronger cultivators did not die, they were still poisoned by the corpse poison. They quickly took out detoxification immortal pills to suppress the corpse poison that had invaded their bodies. But at this moment, arrows that blotted out the sky and covered the earth were already shooting over. Puff, puff, puff. The sound of flesh being torn apart rang out one after another as cultivators were shot to death. Watch out for the palm coming out of the ground. Many cultivators cried out in fear. The palm that suddenly emerged from the ground was too terrifying, causing them to tremble in fear. It was no wonder that they were so frightened. Anyone who encountered such a thing would be shocked. Countless cultivators hurriedly flew into the air. This wave of harvest, a total of 300,000 cultivators, were killed. Not long after the battle began, the 4 Territory Alliance had already lost close to 800,000 cultivators. This greatly boosted the morale of the Sin Blood Alliance cultivators. Before the battle even began, they had already wiped out 800,000 of the enemy's cultivators. By the time the 2 armies started fighting, how many of the enemy's cultivators would have been killed? Thinking of this, many people's morale was greatly boosted. On the other hand, the morale of the 4 Territory Alliance cultivators was extremely low. Damn it, damn it! The immortal sovereign Coiling Cloud's expression was extremely gloomy and ugly. He didn't expect his side to suffer such heavy losses. But what was done could not be undone. He couldn't retreat. He could only continue to attack. This battle lasted for 5 days and 5 nights. In order to break through the Sin City's defensive array, the enemy had lost a total of 7 million cultivators. Such a loss was truly unprecedented. Other than the 7 million cultivators who died, a large number of cultivators were injured as well. These injured cultivators had their battle strength greatly reduced. Kill! The 2 million Sin Blood Alliance cultivators roared as they charged towards the 4 Territory Alliance cultivators. The 2 sides instantly engaged in a fierce battle. It was hard to tell who had the upper hand. On the other hand, the immortal sovereign Coiling Cloud had locked onto Lin Feng. His eyes flashed with killing intent. Right now, the immortal sovereign Coiling Cloud only wanted to kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng, you little brat, your time of death has come. The immortal sovereign Coiling Cloud's expression was cold as he charged towards Lin Feng. The heavenly war god also charged towards Lin Feng. This fellow wanted to eat Lin Feng's flesh and blood. Eating raw human flesh and drinking human blood had always been his hobby. Moreover, this hobby could also greatly increase his cultivation. The 2 true immortal stage cultivators chased after Lin Feng. On the other hand, Lin Feng flew out of the ancient city. Are you trying to escape? You think you can? The 2 true immortal stage cultivators' eyes flashed with killing intent. From their point of view, Lin Feng was probably fearful because of the destruction of the array. Hence, he wanted to use this opportunity to escape. Naturally, the two true immortal stage cultivators would not give Lin Feng the chance to escape. The distance between them and Lin Feng was getting closer and closer. Eventually, Lin Feng entered the forest in the northwest of the ancient city. The two true immortal sovereigns also charged into the forest. However, as soon as they entered, the runes of the array started to intertwine. This was the place where Lin Feng had set up the 9-extinction immortal vanquishing array. The array was tricked. The immortal sovereign coiling clouds expression darkened. The heavenly war god sneered. What are you afraid of? The two of us are true immortal stage cultivators. Do you think we are afraid of this kid? Don't forget that the other party also has a true immortal stage cultivator. It seems like he is here as well. The immortal sovereign coiling cloud said in a deep voice, "It's just a true immortal stage cultivator. We can kill him if we join forces." The heavenly war god sneered. Then he shouted in a deep voice, "Get out here! Get out here! I'm going to tear you to shreds." White mist rolled in the surroundings. A cultivator walked out of the white mist. This cultivator was none other than Duguya. "It's you, Duguya. You actually came to the undying realm." The immortal sovereign coiling cloud was shocked when he saw Duguya. He actually knew Duguya. "I was wondering who it was. So it's one of Lin Baitian's dogs. Could it be that you and that little bastard killed the divine heavenly king back then? I've long said that the divine heavenly king was old. It seems like I was right. He really is old. He actually died at the hands of a dog and a bastard. What a piece of trash." Chapter 46:20. You really have a nasty mouth. Lin Feng appeared behind them. His voice was extremely cold. "What? Am I wrong?" War Godstone Heaven sneered. "Let's go. I'll hold Duguya back. You go kill that brat. After killing that brat, we'll work together to kill Duguya." Immortal Sovereign Pan, Yun, said coldly. Hearing that, War God Stoneheaven nodded and said, "No problem. I'll be able to twist that brat's head off in less than 3 moves." With that, War God Stoneheaven wanted to kill Lin Feng. However, Duguya had already made his move. 6 paths of reincarnation. Duguya directly used the human race's supreme inheritance, the 6 paths of reincarnation. Obviously, Duguya knew that it wasn't easy to fight against 2 true immortals. The longer the battle dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him and Lin Feng. After all, Lin Feng's cultivation level hadn't increased yet. Therefore, Duguya executed his strongest ultimate move right away to deal with these 2 people. In truth, in a battle between cultivators, it was taboo to use one's strongest move as soon as the battle began. Powerful divine abilities usually had a cool-down time. After using it once, it would take some time before it could be used again. Moreover, this kind of divine ability consumed a lot of magic power. After the battle, just now, the other party was also in peak condition. At this time, there was a high chance that he could block this kind of attack. If he used his strongest move to deal with the other party but didn't kill him, he wouldn't be able to use his trump card at the crucial moment. Moreover, his magic power would be severely depleted. As a result, his battle strength would greatly decrease. It would be even more difficult to defeat the other party. However, the current situation forced Duguya to do this. The reason for that was because he was the only true immortal-level expert present. The 6 paths of reincarnation condensed 6 huge black holes, each representing the 6 paths of reincarnation. The 6 paths of reincarnation were the heavenly path, human path, Azura path, animal path, hungry ghost path, and hell path. The six paths of reincarnation had countless small divisions, but these small divisions all belonged to the six paths in the end. In the myths and legends, it was said that the final destination of all living beings in the universe was to enter the six paths of reincarnation. However, this theory had yet to be proven, because even if there were people who reincarnated, they would only reincarnate as a corpse. Instead of reincarnating through the six paths of reincarnation, it didn't matter whether the six paths of reincarnation was true or not. However, the six paths of reincarnation was definitely one of the most terrifying skills in history. When this divine ability was used, the six black holes formed a terrifying force. That powerful energy directly enveloped immortal Venerable Panyin and war god Shirtion. Both of their bodies were greatly affected by it. The human race's supreme skill, six paths reincarnation. Lin Batian taught you this skill. However, you've only been a true immortal for a short period of time. Even if your divine ability is invincible, the two of us are not afraid of you. Immortal Venerable Pan Yun roared and slapped out with his palm. His palm seemed to have turned into the palm of the heavens. The divine ability Immortal Venerable Pan Yun used was called the Hand of the Heavens. It was also a famous and terrifying divine ability. Moreover, it was a top divine ability passed down in the world of cultivators. More than one person knew this divine ability. Ha ha ha, this is more interesting. If I squash the two of you like ants, then it'll be boring. War god Shirtion couldn't help but laugh. Then, war god Shirtion also used an extremely powerful divine ability. The divine ability he used was called the Stone Emperor Fist. When he punched out, it was as if the Stone Emperor had descended. The power of that punch was truly terrifying. They wanted to break the six black holes formed by the six paths of reincarnation. Therefore, the two of them didn't stop attacking. Blow after blow, the six black holes began to shake violently. The two of them had cultivated for more than 30 million years. They were at the peak of their lives. Their combat strength was naturally terrifying. Although Duguya was also in the true immortal realm, he had only cultivated for slightly more than 10,000 years. The reason he was able to transform into a true immortal was because of Lin Feng's father, Lin Baiqian's help more than 100 years ago. Later on, Duguya's cultivation went awry, causing his cultivation to drop rapidly. In recent years, he had once again cultivated his cultivation back to its peak in the past. Therefore, although he was also in the true immortal realm, his cultivation and foundation couldn't be compared to immortal Venerable Panyin and war god Shirtion. However, Duguya's divine ability was far stronger than theirs. The six paths of reincarnation was at least in the top 10 of this era. No, to be more precise, the six paths of reincarnation was at least in the top 3 of this era. Therefore, after using the six paths of reincarnation, he could suppress immortal Venerable Panyin and war god Shirtion. Just as they were in a stalemate, Lin Feng activated the 9 extinction immortal slaughtering array. Whoosh, whoosh, beams of death light condensed and shot towards immortal Venerable Panyin and war god Shirtion. Sensing how terrifying those beams of death light were, immortal Venerable Panyin and war god Shirtion's expressions changed drastically. They didn't expect the array here to be so powerful. Therefore, the two of them quickly blocked the beams of death light. However, because of this, they lost a lot of energy. The pressure on Duguya's side was greatly reduced. 6 paths as one. Then, Duguya started to condense a new attack. The 6 black holes formed by the 6 paths of reincarnation, representing heaven, human, Asura, beast, hungry ghost, and hell, respectively, started to merge. As the 6 black holes continued to merge, terrifying ripples surged out from the merged black holes. The ripples were so terrifying that the immortal venerable Pan Yun and war god Shi Tian's expressions couldn't help but change. In truth, they had only heard of the 6 paths of reincarnation, but they had never experienced the terror of the 6 paths of reincarnation. Now, they finally knew how heaven-defying this ability was. The 6 black holes merged into one, then shot towards immortal venerable Pan Yun and war god Shi Tian. Puff, puff. The power that the black hole emitted was too terrifying. Therefore, the 2 immortal venerable Pan Yun couldn't take it and directly vomited blood. Damn, the 6 paths of reincarnation is so powerful. Lin Feng's heart was also in turmoil. The power of the 6 paths of reincarnation was truly shocking. Of course, Lin Feng didn't stay idle either. He took out the Ho-E bow and sun-shooting divine arrow. Then he pulled the bow and shot. Whoosh! The Ho-E bow quickly flew out. It directly shot towards immortal venerable Pan Yun. Immortal venerable Pan Yun was a cunning person, so Lin Feng planned to kill him first. After immortal venerable Pan Yun was killed, war god Shi Tian wouldn't be a threat anymore. Chapter 46:21. The shooting sun god arrow pierced through the void and shot towards the immortal venerable Pan Yun. At such a close distance, the immortal venerable Pan Yun had no chance of dodging this attack. Activate the treasure. The immortal venerable Pan Yun immediately shouted when he saw the shooting sun god arrow shooting towards him. Now, both he and the war god Shi Tian had suffered different degrees of injuries. Therefore, the immortal venerable Pan Yun did not dare to be careless. Especially after sensing the power of the shooting sun god arrow, he did not dare to be careless. Buzz! The immortal venerable Pan Yun waved his hand and took out the immortal slaying sword. The war god Shi Tian took out the demon slaughtering saber. The powerful mana in their bodies continuously surged into the 2 treasures. Suddenly, the 2 treasures shook and emitted an extremely terrifying fluctuation. Then, the 2 treasures actually fused together. After fusing, the 2 treasures became like a saber but not a saber, like a sword but not a sword. However, their auras were many times stronger than before. Ancient weapon. The rumors are true. The demon slaughtering saber and the immortal slaying sword can become an ancient weapon after fusing together. Lin Feng's face immediately revealed a shocked expression. Before this, he had already received the news. It was just that he could not believe this news. After all, the person who forged the demon slaughtering saber and the immortal slaying sword was not the same person. Moreover, these 2 treasures did not appear in the same era. Therefore, there was almost no reason to say that these 2 treasures could fuse together. However, today he saw it with his own eyes. The 2 treasures really fused together. It was really unbelievable. After fusing, the ancient weapon gently swept across. Clang! Accompanied by the clanging sound of collision, the ancient weapon collided with the shooting sun god arrow. Suddenly, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Lin Feng's shooting sun god arrow was then sent flying. An ancient weapon was an ancient weapon. Its power was too terrifying, even if the other party was a true immortal expert. But in reality, it could only release a small portion of the ancient weapon's power. But even if it was only a small portion of its power, it was still terrifying enough. Ha 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 ha! Do you feel the power of the ancient weapon? You two ant-like things. Do you feel the aura of death? The immortal, venerable Pan Yun laughed loudly. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. The ancient weapon was indeed powerful. Moreover, when the 2 of them used it together, its power was even more terrifying. Kill them! War god Shi Tian said with a sinister smile, following which The two of them continuously injected their powers into the ancient weapon. Buzz. The ancient weapon trembled slightly. Next, the number of ancient weapons increased from 1 to 18. 18 ancient weapons floated in midair, shaking the void. Every time it shook the void, it would send out waves of violent fluctuations. Swish, swish, swish. Following that, the 18 ancient weapons shot towards Lin Feng and Duguya respectively. Obviously, only one of them was real. The other 17 were manifested through special methods. However, only one of the ancient weapons was real. However, the manifested ancient weapons still possessed unimaginable power. With a light sweep, it seemed to be able to destroy all obstacles. It was as if a light blow could destroy the world. Duguya used the 6 paths of reincarnation black hole to imprison the 12 ancient weapons flying towards him. Duguya's cultivation was high, so they focused their energy on dealing with Duguya. The 6 paths of reincarnation black hole was very terrifying. It scattered the condensed ancient weapons. Only the real ancient weapon was left. On the other hand, Lin Feng quickly retreated. He shot arrow after arrow at the rapidly approaching ancient weapons. The arrows flew out and collided with the ancient weapons. Every time they collided, there would be a deafening sound. Although they were only manifested ancient weapons, they dissolved the energy arrows that Lin Feng shot out. Lin Feng continuously shot out dozens of energy arrows to dissolve the 6 condensed ancient weapons. Break. At this moment, the immortal Venerable Pan Yun and war god Shi Tian worked together to activate their ancient weapons to the maximum. One had to admit that the ancient weapons were indeed too powerful. They actually tore apart the 6 paths of reincarnation black hole. Seeing this, Duguya quickly retreated and distanced himself from the ancient weapons. Ha 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 ha! Now that we have the ancient weapons, no matter how powerful your methods are, only death awaits you today. The immortal Venerable Pan Yun laughed loudly. I can't wait to eat this kid's flesh and drink his blood. War god Shi Tian laughed sinisterly. Clearly, the immortal Venerable Pan Yun and war god Shi Tian believed that Lin Feng and Duguya would die without a doubt. It's too early to be happy. Lin Feng sneered. Reckless fool. Do you think you can deal with the two of us? The immortal Venerable Pan Yun looked at Lin Feng with contempt. Lin Feng said, That's right. That's what I think. At this moment, Duguya stretched out his right hand. In his right hand, a supreme treasure appeared. This supreme treasure emitted the same aura as the ancient weapons. It was a treasured sword. It was formed from the essence of the sun and moon, fused with the 9 suns' astral chi. It was also an ancient weapon. Sun-Moon Astral Sword. This is the Sun-Moon Astral Sword. Rumor has it that after you cultivated to the true immortal realm, your cultivation dropped rapidly. It's said that it's related to an ancient weapon. I didn't expect the rumor to be true. After seeing the Sun-Moon Astral Sword, the immortal Venerable Pan Yun's eyes widened. His expression became extremely ugly. That's right, my cultivation drop is indeed related to the Sun-Moon Astral Sword. This supreme treasure turned into an artifact cultivator to stir up trouble, killing dozens of innocent life forms. I went to suppress it, but I didn't expect to underestimate its strength. Instead, it almost took my life. Fortunately, I wasn't destined to die. Heaven Destroyer appeared when I was in danger and scattered the remnant soul of this ancient weapon. Then he refined this ancient weapon into my body, fusing my life with this ancient weapon. That's how I managed to keep my life. Duguya said coldly. Before the battle, Lin Feng had heard about this from Duguya. Therefore, he wasn't surprised. Of course, even though he wasn't surprised, Lin Feng still felt his blood boil. How powerful was an ancient weapon? And an ancient weapon that turned into an artifact cultivator was even more terrifying. Back then, his father had actually scattered the soul of this ancient weapon. What kind of soul-stirring battle was that? What kind of blood-boiling battle was that? Unfortunately, he could only know the scene of that battle from Senior Duguya's mouth. He couldn't see his father's heroic figure with his own eyes. Lin Feng couldn't help but feel regretful. Chapter 46:22. It's just an ancient weapon with its soul destroyed. How can its power be comparable to our ancient weapon? So, what if you have this ancient weapon? Won't you still die in the end? War god Shirtian couldn't help but sneer. My ancient weapon's power isn't as strong as it was at its peak, but it's not a problem for it to unleash the power of an ordinary ancient weapon. Although the ancient weapons in both of your hands are complete, this ancient weapon has a fatal weakness. That is, this ancient weapon is an ancient weapon formed by the fusion of two ancient weapons. Such an ancient weapon is at most equivalent to an ordinary ancient weapon. Therefore, this ancient weapon of yours can at most tie with my Sun Moon Tiangang sword. Duguya said indifferently, "You're overestimating yourselves. I'll make sure you die without a burial ground later." Immortal Sovereign Coiling Cloud sneered. Then he and war god Shirtian controlled their ancient weapons to attack Duguya. Duguya's expression was indifferent. He held the Sun Moon Celestial Dipper sword in his hand and swept it towards his opponent's ancient weapon. Clang! Along with the clanging sound of collision, the ancient weapons of the two sides collided fiercely. Instantly, an incomparably violent and destructive power spread out in all directions. The destructive power destroyed Lin Feng's 9-extinction immortal slaughtering array. The collision of ancient weapons was too terrifying, especially when the ancient weapons fell into the hands of someone who could use them. The explosive power would be even more terrifying, and the destructive power of the collision would be even more terrifying. Therefore, the destructive power that poured out not only destroyed Lin Feng's array, but also sent Lin Feng flying. Fortunately, Lin Feng took out his ruler's armor in time. Otherwise, he would have been seriously injured. The power of ancient weapons is really terrifying. I still have 2 ancient weapons. What a pity my cultivation isn't enough to use them. Lin Feng couldn't help but mutter after seeing the terrifying power of the collision between the 2 ancient weapons. One of Lin Feng's 2 ancient weapons was an ancient killing weapon. This ancient killer weapon was sealed in Mudo Mudo's storage ring. Mudo Mudo had been poisoned to death by a venomous bug. His death was truly a tragic one. The second ancient weapon was an ancient demon weapon that Lin Feng obtained after killing the son of the Heavenly Demon King. Back then, the Heavenly Demon Emperor sealed the ancient demon weapon and left it to his son. However, Sky Demon Emperor had never expected that his son would be killed by Yi Shiwen, and that the ancient demon weapon would be taken away by Yi Shiwen. Although he couldn't use the ancient demon weapon, the Ho Yi Bao and the sun-slaying divine arrow could still be of great use if he could use them well. Sun Moon Star Slash. Duguya held the Sun Moon Big Dipper sword with both hands. Then he slashed out with his sword, an endless sword light condensed. Behind him, an illusory and mysterious world was condensed. In that illusory and mysterious world, countless stars appeared. Every star seemed to be able to shatter the heavens with just a slight rotation. This was a sword technique that was compatible with the Sun Moon Big Dipper sword. Many top-notch magic treasures had a matching divine ability to be used together with them. When the time came, it would erupt with an unbelievably terrifying power. Just like now, Duguya used the Sun Moon Celestial Dipper sword, this ancient weapon, to execute the Sun Moon Stars Slash. The might of this sword technique was truly horrifying. At this moment, the immortal sovereign Pan Yun held their ancient weapon. "Lend me a hand!" the immortal sovereign Pan Yun shouted. Hearing this, war god Stoneheaven nodded and placed his hands on the immortal sovereign Pan Yun's back. Then, powerful magic power, it flowed endlessly into the immortal sovereign Pan Yun's body. The magic power in the immortal sovereign Pan Yun's body increased explosively. The magic power crazily flowed into the ancient weapon in front of him. They didn't use the divine ability that was compatible with the ancient weapon. This was because the ancient weapon didn't belong to the two of them at all. This was the Heavenly Emperor's treasure. The Heavenly Emperor had only given it to them for temporary use. It wasn't truly given to them. Therefore, the two of them naturally didn't know about the divine ability that was compatible with the ancient weapon. However, even if they didn't know about this divine ability, the immortal sovereign Pan Yun himself had cultivated many powerful divine abilities, including some that were activated with magic treasures. For example, the immortal sovereign Pan Yun was currently holding the ancient weapon and slashing it out. Endless divine lightning condensed and coiled around the ancient weapon. The divine ability that the immortal sovereign Pan Yun used was called the Thunder of 10 Directions. With a powerful magic treasure as the medium, it could erupt with unimaginably terrifying power. Clang! The two ancient weapons collided once again. With the place where they collided as the center, a huge shockwave was formed. They were both pouring magic power endlessly into their ancient weapons, wanting to defeat the other party. However, the two sides were in a deadlock. However, this deadlock was quickly broken. Although Duguya's battle power was heaven-defying, the other party had two true immortal experts using their ancient weapons to deal with him alone. Therefore, this difference gradually became apparent. Duguya's expression became somewhat unsightly. Clearly, he had discovered that something was wrong with his side. "I'll shoot you to death." Lin Feng stood behind the immortal sovereign Pan Yun and war god Shirtian. His expression was incomparably gloomy. Lin Feng held the Ho Yi Bao and shot out arrow after arrow. Dozens of energy arrows shot out, but they were all shattered by the energy field formed by their battle. The energy arrows shot out by the Ho Yi Bao couldn't break through the energy field formed by their battle at all. After all, their battle also involved the ancient weapons. Now, they had fused with the power of the ancient weapons. Therefore, the energy field around them had also fused with the energy field of the two ancient weapons. Lin Feng didn't give up. He continued to shoot. This time, Lin Feng shot out the sun-slaying divine arrow. Clang! When the sun-slaying divine arrow shot out, the powerful energy field actually sent Lin Feng's sun-slaying divine arrow flying. You overestimate yourself. Do you think you can interfere in a battle between experts of our level? Just you wait. Soon, we'll kill Duguya. Do you feel like you're going crazy watching your seniors being killed by us while you can't do anything about it? War god Shirtian laughed complacently. He looked at Lin Feng with contempt. Then he retracted his gaze and ignored Lin Feng. In any case, Lin Feng's attack couldn't break through the energy field around them. War god Shirtian's magic power continued to surge into the immortal sovereign Pan Yun's body. He planned to go all out with the immortal sovereign Pan Yun to kill Duguya as soon as possible. Chapter 46:23. The opponent's attacks were getting fiercer and stronger. However, it was extremely unrealistic for them to kill Duguya in a short period of time because Duguya's battle strength was extremely terrifying. Although he might not be able to withstand their combined attacks, he wouldn't be killed so quickly. Damn it! How dare you look down on me? Lin Feng cursed angrily when he saw the contempt in war god Stoneheaven's eyes. This bastard was too arrogant. Lin Feng didn't unleash the full power of the Ho Yi Bao and sun-slaying divine arrow just now. Lin Feng only used his own power. He didn't use the power of the 9 orifices stone man, the golden dwarf, the magic lotus, or the ruler's armor. If he could use their strength, Lin Feng's battle strength would increase by a huge margin. And now, Lin Feng decided to use their power. Lin Feng communicated with the spirit of the magic lotus, Shui Wei. After communicating with Shui Wei, suddenly, the power of the magic lotus began to fuse into Lin Feng's body. At this moment, Shui Wei had already fused the power of the third world of the magic lotus into the magic lotus. Moreover, after fusing with the power of the third world, the power of the magic lotus reached the first layer of the celestial immortal realm. According to Shui Wei, the highest power it could reach was the peak of the initial stage of the celestial immortal realm, which was the power of the third layer of the celestial immortal realm. The lowest power it could reach was the peak of the earth immortal realm. Although it didn't reach the peak of the third layer of the celestial immortal realm, it wasn't the lowest power of the peak of the earth immortal realm. Lin Feng was already very satisfied to be able to reach the first layer of the celestial immortal realm. Therefore, after the power of the magic lotus fused into Lin Feng's body, Lin Feng suddenly had the urge to look up to the sky and roar. This feeling was really too comfortable. Then, Lin Feng fused with the golden dwarf's power. As his cultivation increased, the golden dwarf's bloodline power also became more powerful. Therefore, the golden dwarf became more tyrannical and played a great role in increasing Lin Feng's battle strength. Then, Lin Feng merged the 9 orifices stone man avatar into his body. In the end, Lin Feng merged the power of the ruler's armor into his body. After fusing with the magic lotus, his avatar, the golden dwarf, and the ruler's armor, Lin Feng immediately felt his combat strength increase by a large margin. Lin Feng looked indifferently at war god Shirtian and immortal venerable Pan Yun. He drew his bow again and shot an arrow. Powerful magic power poured into the Ho Yi Bao in a steady stream. After being converted by the Ho Yi Bao, all of this magic power was fused into the sun-slaying divine arrows. The densely packed runes on the sun-shooting divine arrow began to awaken. At this stage, Lin Feng used the ancestral sorcerer's jade amulet to activate the Ho Yi Bao and the sun-shooting divine arrow to their maximum potential. However, Lin Feng still hadn't found a way to activate the ancestral sorcerer's jade amulet. The last time he activated the ancestral sorcerer's jade amulet was indeed a coincidence. The ancestral sorcerer's jade amulet's power was only awakened because of the right time, the right place, and the right person. Lin Feng merged with the magic lotus, the 9 orifices stone man avatar, the golden dwarf, and the ruler's armor. Although they weren't as powerful as the ancestral sorcerer's jade amulet, they were still extremely powerful. This was because the power of the magic lotus, the 9 orifices stone man avatar, the golden dwarf, and the ruler's armor were all constantly increasing. Lin Feng's own cultivation was also constantly increasing. Therefore, the power that Lin Feng could use was also increasing. Whoosh! The sun-shooting divine arrow flew out again. Although the sound of the sun-shooting divine arrow was suppressed, it was impossible to hide it from war god Shirtian and immortal venerable Pan Yun. After all, their cultivations were too powerful. However, the immortal venerable and war god Shirtian didn't care at all. Previously, when Lin Feng used the Ho Yi Bao to shoot the sun-shooting divine arrow, it didn't break the energy field outside their bodies. Therefore, they didn't care about Lin Feng's attack. It was the same before, and it was the same now. At this moment, the power of the sun-shooting divine arrow was already incomparable to before. The sun-shooting divine arrow rapidly penetrated the energy field formed by the three experts and shot towards war god Shirtian, an immortal venerable Pan-Yun. It would be best if it could pierce through their bodies. Not good. War god Shirtian was the first to notice the sun-shooting divine arrow penetrating the energy field. He was behind immortal venerable Pan-Yun. If the sun-shooting divine arrow were to kill someone, it would kill him first. Immortal venerable Pan-Yun also noticed the sun-shooting divine arrow. His expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly moved to the left. It was too late for war god Shirtian to dodge the sun-shooting divine arrow. At this critical moment, war god Shirtian took out a powerful defensive magic treasure. This defensive magic treasure was called the Golden Sacred Heavenly Shield. It was a true, immortal-level defensive magic treasure, and its defensive power was extremely strong. War god Shirtian wanted to use this defensive magic treasure to block the attack of the sun-shooting divine arrow. He placed this defensive magic treasure in front of him. However, when the sun-shooting divine arrow hit the defensive magic treasure, it instantly pierced through it. This caused war god Stoneheaven to be greatly shocked because the power of the sun-slaying divine arrow had suddenly increased by many times. In an instant, it had already consumed a lot of energy to pierce through the chi field formed by the battle between the three experts. However, in the next instant, it had also pierced through his true immortal-level defensive magic treasure. It was truly incredible. Pooh! In the next moment, the sun-shooting divine arrow pierced through war god Shirtian's chest. Then, the sun-shooting divine arrow quickly flew towards Lin Feng. War god Shirtian lowered his head and looked at the bloody hole in his chest. Blood was constantly gushing out from the bloody hole. For experts of their level, even if their bodies were pierced, this kind of injury would not be fatal. This was because their vitality was simply too strong. However, the attack of the sun-shooting divine arrow was different from other attacks. When the sun-shooting divine arrow pierced through the body, the power it released was enough to destroy any person's vitality. How could this be? War god Shirtian could not believe it. Then he laughed bitterly. After all, he was a true immortal-level expert, high and mighty, looking down at the undying world. He was the war god in the eyes of countless people, a god that countless people worshipped. War god Shirtian even dreamed of living to the next era and even pursued immortality. But now, everything was like a dream. He, war god Shirtian, a true immortal-level expert, he was actually shot to death by a young cultivator. War god Shirtian could not accept all of this. This was simply a great humiliation to him. Why? War god Shirtian roared 3 times in a row. In the end, he fell to the ground and died. A true immortal was killed by Lin Feng's arrow, just like that. Chapter 46:24. You actually killed the heavenly war god. Damn it! You've caused a calamity. The heavenly war god's bloodline doesn't only belong to the war god clan. He also has the bloodline of the stone golem clan. There's a stone golem sovereign in the heavenly realm who was the ancestor of the heavenly war god. He valued the heavenly war god greatly. Now that you've killed him, no one in this world can save you. Seeing the heavenly war god killed by Lin Feng with a single arrow, the immortal sovereign Coiling Cloud immediately shouted himself hoarse. He was afraid that the expert from the heavenly realm would take his anger out on him. If that happened, even the heavenly emperor might not be able to protect him. Lin Feng sneered. The heavenly realm's people can't interfere with the matters of the undying realm. Since I can kill the heavenly war god, I can kill the stone golem sovereign when I get to the heavenly realm. I want to see if the so-called stone golem sovereign really has the battle strength of a stone golem sovereign, or if he's just bragging and gave himself such a name. It was no wonder that Lin Feng doubted the other party's identity. There weren't many stone golem sovereigns since ancient times. The stone golem sovereign's son who attacked the Dao Saint Palace was indeed a stone golem sovereign. In a certain era, he was considered an invincible existence. But now, there were too many people who didn't have the strength, but still gave themselves such a flashy name. Who knew if the stone golem sovereign coiling cloud was talking about was such a person? Of course. Lin Feng naturally knew that even if the stone golem sovereign's battle strength wasn't at the level of a titled god, it was still extremely terrifying. After all, the immortal sovereign coiling cloud was a true immortal expert. Even someone of his level was so afraid of the stone golem sovereign. From this, one could see how terrifying the stone golem sovereign's battle strength was. Just you wait. When the time comes, you won't have a good ending. The immortal sovereign coiling cloud coldly said. Then he flew into the distance. He wanted to escape. Lin Feng and Duguya had already predicted that he would choose to escape. So when the immortal sovereign coiling cloud fled into the distance, Lin Feng drew his bow and shot another arrow. Whoosh! With a violent sonic boom, the sun-slaying divine arrow shot towards the immortal venerable coiling cloud with a long tail of light. After feeling the terrifying power of the shooting sun's divine arrow that was shooting towards them from behind, immortal venerable Pan Yun's expression changed abruptly. The reason for that was because the might of that arrow was truly too terrifying. It made one's hair stand on end. This was how war god Shirtian had been killed by Lin Feng's arrow. Therefore, immortal venerable coiling cloud didn't dare to be careless in the face of the shooting sun divine arrow. He waved the ancient weapon in his hand and swept it towards the sun-slaying divine arrow that was coming from behind. Clang! Along with the sound of a collision, a sonorous sound was heard. The sun-slaying divine arrow and the ancient weapon in immortal venerable coiling cloud's hand collided violently. The sun-shot divine arrow was sent flying, but Pan Yun, immortal venerable, didn't have it easy either. His body was also sent flying, and the hand that was holding the ancient weapon was also shattered. Blood immediately flowed out. Pan Yun, immortal venerable, was truly mad. He was actually injured. Moreover, he was injured by a junior like Lin Feng. This made him feel even more humiliated. Immortal venerable Pan Yun, die. At this moment, Duguya had already charged in front of immortal venerable Pan Yun. He held the sun-moon dipper sword and slashed out 3 times in a row. The might of these 3 slashes was extremely terrifying. The first slash was called star slashing. The second slash was called moon arc. The third slash was called broken Sunday. Each of these 3 slashes was stronger than the previous one. The might of each slash had reached a level that made one's face pale with fright. Finally, the 3 slashes combined into one, and the might increased explosively. Facing Duguya's powerful attack, immortal venerable Pan Yun's expression couldn't help but become extremely ugly. He had just blocked Lin Feng's shooting sunshot divine arrow, but he was attacked by Duguya. This made immortal venerable Pan Yun extremely depressed. He originally wanted to get rid of the 2, but now it seemed that he was going to be entangled by them. Facing Duguya's attack, immortal venerable Pan Yun didn't dare to be careless at all. He used the cross heaven-destroying slash and directly slashed towards Duguya. Duguya's 3 slashes combined into one, and the might was raised to the peak. In the next moment, the 2 ancient weapons in their hands collided together. Terrifying power shot out horizontally and vertically. Every single one of these terrifying forces made people turn pale with fright. This time, immortal venerable Pan, Yun lost, and was sent flying by Duguya's sword. Duguya quickly chased after. His wrist suddenly shook, and the Sun-Moon Big Dipper sword directly swept towards immortal venerable Pan Yun. Immortal venerable Pan Yun's expression was horrified. He wanted to block this sword, but it was already too late. He could only quickly move to the right. This person's reaction was extremely fast. However, no matter how fast his reaction was, it wasn't easy to completely dodge this attack. With a tearing sound, immortal venerable Pan Yun's left arm was chopped off by Duguya. Immortal venerable Pan Yun couldn't help but let out a miserable cry. Good chance. Lin Feng's eyes lit up slightly. Immortal venerable Pan Yun's arm was chopped off by Senior Duguya, and he was severely injured. Now was a great opportunity to kill this guy. Lin Feng shot out another arrow. The shooting sunshot divine arrow quickly shot towards immortal venerable Pan Yun's head. At the same time, Duguya's terrifying sword also swept towards immortal venerable Pan Yun once again. He was now attacked from both sides. The situation was extremely bad, but just at this moment, the ancient weapon in Duguya's hand actually shook violently. Buzz. That ancient weapon let out a long cry. Then, an incomparably terrifying aura was transmitted from the ancient weapon. The ancient weapon took the initiative to soar into the sky. It lightly swept through the void. First, it sent Lin Feng's shooting sunshot divine arrow flying. Then, it sent Duguya retreating. In the next moment, that ancient weapon actually turned into the appearance of a middle-aged cultivator. This was an extremely handsome middle-aged cultivator, and also incomparably dignified. He had the aura of a superior weapon cultivator. No, it doesn't seem to be a weapon cultivator. Lin Feng couldn't help but be somewhat puzzled. It's divine will possession. This person is very terrifying. He only attached his divine will to this weapon, and he can actually control this weapon to turn into a human form. His battle strength is absolutely heaven-defying and unimaginable. Duguya said, just as Lin Feng and Dugu, you were guessing who this person was. Immortal venerable Pan Yun knelt on the ground and then kowtowed, your humble servant greets your majesty. Seeing immortal venerable Pan Yun so respectfully bow to this person, and immortal venerable Pan Yun even used the word your majesty to address the other party. In Lin Feng's heart, it was as if monstrous waves were set off. Heavenly Emperor. The person in front of him was actually the Heavenly Emperor. It was rumored that the Heavenly Emperor was in existence with 1 foot in the true immortal realm. Right now, he was searching for a way to surpass immortality and enter the saint realm. If the Heavenly Emperor broke through again, then he would be in the saint realm. Chapter 46:25. Duguya. In fact, I have heard of you a long time ago. You were with Lin Beitian for a period of time, but your body was injured when you subdued the Sun-Moon celestial sword. Therefore, you had to go into seclusion to heal your injuries. You should be very glad that you left in time. Otherwise, you would have become a pile of yellow soil in this vast world, just like those people who are foolishly loyal to Lin Beitian. They don't understand the meaning of life. Living is the most important thing. If you die, everything will be in vain. Heaven Emperor looked at Duguya with an indifferent expression. Duguya's expression was extremely gloomy. Back then, he had followed Lin Feng's father, Lin Beitian. At that time, he was close friends with many of Lin Beitian's followers. However, that parting turned into an eternal parting. He would never be able to see those close friends again, because they were all dead. Heaven Emperor, you deserve to die. As the Lord of the undying world, as a peak expert at the end of this epoch, you actually colluded with the people of that world. Even if you die 1,000 times, 10,000 times, It won't be enough. Dugya said coldly. Heaven Emperor smiled and said, even now, you still can't see through things. Everyone knows that the end of an epic is inevitable. Since that's the case, we should let nature take its course instead of resisting. Yet, you people are trying to resist. How laughable and foolish. Dugya said coldly, do you know how many lives will die without a burial place when an epic is destroyed? Heaven Emperor said indifferently, it's fine as long as you can survive. Why do you care about the lives of the world? Dugya was rendered speechless by Heaven Emperor's words. Some people would willfully slaughter the innocent for their own selfish desires. They ignored the common people and didn't care about their position. And clearly, the celestial emperor belonged to this kind of person. Some people cared about the common people of the world and wanted to save them. The great ancient saint emperors, or the experts who had made great contributions to this epic, or even sacrificed their lives for this epic, belonged to this group of people. It was too narrow-minded to only care about oneself. It was a little too boring. Caring for the common people wasn't just being sanctimonious. Think about it. We survived, but our loved ones, our parents, our relatives, our clansmen, our friends, and our fellow disciples all died. What was the meaning of such a life? Lin Feng said indifferently, as expected of Heaven Emperor to be able to say the words dog in such a refreshing manner. You were born to be a slave, even after becoming Heaven Emperor. Heaven Emperor narrowed his eyes at Lin Feng when he heard Lin Feng's mocking words. Those who understood Heaven Emperor's personality would know that when he narrowed his eyes at someone, he already wanted to kill that person. Heaven Emperor wanted to kill Lin Feng because Lin Feng's words had angered him. Although Heaven Emperor was high and mighty, there were still things he didn't want to face. For example, he would never forget how his clansmen had mocked him when he was a child. Back then, in order to break through to the true immortal realm, he had unhesitatingly killed his own mother to remove his inner demons. Could it be that Heaven Emperor truly wanted to break through to the true immortal realm? No, that wasn't the case at all. There was another important reason for Heaven Emperor's actions. That was, Heaven Emperor hated his own mother. He had always felt that all the humiliation he had suffered was caused by her. Therefore, he had killed his own mother without hesitation. From this, one could see Heaven Emperor was such a heartless person. Moreover, because of his experience when he was young, Heaven Emperor valued the gazes of others very much. He enjoyed the gazes of others who respected and worshipped him. He couldn't accept others' contempt and disrespect towards him. Lin Feng, son of Lin Beitian, even your father doesn't dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. Who do you think you are? How dare you be so presumptuous in front of this emperor? You really don't know the rules. Your father must have taught you to be like this. Black smoke must be coming out of his ancestral grave. What a misfortune! Heaven Emperor sneered. Lin Feng smiled faintly and said, are you jealous of me? That's why you said such words. My ancestors have many experts from the Sovereign Emperor clan, as well as many experts from the Undying clan. Their bloodlines are incomparably powerful, and you, Heavenly Emperor, are from the Celestial race. I know about this race, and although the Celestial race thinks that their bloodlines are very noble, in front of us, the Celestial race is ranked at the bottom of the innate human race. They are only fit to carry the shoes of the Sovereign Emperor clan and the Undying clan. As for your origin, I know even more clearly. Although your father is a cultivator of the Celestial race, your mother is a cultivator of the White Peacock race. The bloodline of the Celestial race is not a high-grade bloodline, but those guys with ordinary bloodlines have always looked down on you and insulted you as a lowly bloodline. It's really the pot calling the kettle black. There's a saying that when the tiger is not in the mountain, the monkey will be the king. It's talking about you celestial race cultivators. After those powerful bloodlines were hidden, you guys jumped out and acted so self-righteously. Later on, in order to break through to the true immortal realm, you even killed your mother. I'm not wrong about this, am I? Enough, Heavenly Emperor said angrily. His eyes became incomparably gloomy. This was his secret, and Heavenly Emperor thought that no one knew about it. However, Lin Feng, a junior, actually knew about it. Moreover, Yi Fuqian had revealed these secrets. Heavenly Emperor couldn't accept this, and this made him go mad with hatred. His heart was filled with killing intent. When Pan Yun heard Lin Feng's words, his mouth fell open. He was clearly shocked. Then, a sense of fear rose in his heart. He knew Heavenly Emperor too well. Now that Lin Feng had revealed Heavenly Emperor's secret, Heavenly Emperor wouldn't kill him out of anger. Would he? After all, only the dead could better guard these secrets. Duguya was also very shocked. He didn't expect Lin Feng to know Heavenly Emperor's secret. It was also the first time he had heard of these secrets. And obviously, if these secrets were to be leaked, it would definitely cause a huge uproar, because Heavenly Emperor killed his mother. Therefore, this matter was enough to ruin Heavenly Emperor's reputation. Chapter 46:26. Ha 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 ha. The Celestial Emperor suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? Lin Feng asked indifferently. I'm laughing at how laughable you are. You can make up any kind of lie just to smear my name. The Celestial Emperor said indifferently. Of course, he wouldn't admit to what had happened back then. No one else would admit to it. However, what Lin Feng said was true. Lin Feng had heard this from the Demon Lord. Originally, the Demon Lord shouldn't know such a secret. However, the Yao Lord was a cultivator of the Yao clan. Back then, he was on good terms with a powerhouse of the White Peacock clan. That powerhouse of the White Peacock clan revealed this matter after drinking. The Demon Lord's fallback then was related to this matter. Even the expert from the White Peacock race, who knew this secret, was killed by the Celestial Emperor. Brat, you're crazy. You slandered the Celestial Emperor. You dare to make up any kind of lie. You deserve to die 10,000 times. Immortal Sovereign Pan Yun scolded Lin Feng. He naturally had to show off in front of the Celestial Emperor. He wanted to tell the Celestial Emperor that he didn't believe Lin Feng's words at all. He wanted to reassure the Celestial Emperor. Otherwise, he would die a horrible death. Right and wrong are all in the heart. Perhaps only the Celestial Emperor himself knows whether what I said is true or not. Lin Feng said, back then, your father was a scourge, and you were a scourge as well. You only know how to spread rumors and create trouble. Even if you say such things, how many people would believe you? The Celestial Emperor looked coldly at Lin Feng. Since I've appeared today, I can't let you off. I originally wanted to kill you, but now I've changed my mind. I want to bring you back to the heavenly court. Immortal Sovereign Pan Yun, delay Duguya. I'll capture this brat. Yes. Immortal Sovereign Pan Yun hurriedly replied. The Celestial Emperor walked toward Lin Feng. Duguya's expression changed. Lin Feng could not deal with the Sky Emperor. Duguya knew this very well. He charged towards the Sky Emperor. He wanted to delay the Sky Emperor so that Lin Feng could leave as soon as possible. The appearance of the Celestial Emperor today was an extremely dangerous signal in itself. The Sky Emperor was too powerful. He had one foot in the Saint Realm. Duguya wasn't sure how strong the body formed by the combination of his spiritual sense and the ancient weapon was. However, there was one thing that Duguya was clear about. The Heavenly Emperor in front of him wasn't someone that he could contend against. Moreover, the Heavenly Emperor had the Pan-Yun Immortal Venerable, a true immortal expert, by his side. In order to deal with the Sinner's Blood Alliance, the Heavenly Emperor had truly gone all out. "Duguya, your opponent is me," Pan-Yun Immortal Venerable sneered. He took out a supreme treasure and attacked Duguya. This supreme treasure was extremely extraordinary because it was a stone artifact. After all, Pan-Yun Immortal Venerable was an expert who had lived for tens of millions of years, so he definitely had some heaven-defying magic treasures on him. For example, the supreme treasure that he took out now was one of them. This was a treasure seal called the Coiling Dragon Seal. Its power was extremely terrifying. Now that it was taken out, it instantly erupted with heaven-defying power. Pan-Yun Immortal Venerable used the Coiling Dragon Seal to block Duguya. Lin Feng quickly retreated. He shot arrow after arrow at the Sky Emperor. However, the arrows stopped when they were about 3 meters away from the Sky Emperor. They couldn't break through the Sky Emperor's defense at all. The Sky Emperor waved his hand, and the arrows shattered. At this moment, the sun-slaying divine arrow was shot at the Sky Emperor. The Sky Emperor flicked his finger. A clanging sound rang out. Then, Lin Feng's sun-slaying divine arrow was actually repelled by the Sky Emperor. Lin Feng's expression changed abruptly. The guy before him didn't even descend with his true body. He was actually so terrifying. This was inconceivable. The Sky Emperor raised his right hand and slapped at Lin Feng. The Sky Emperor's terrifying attack enveloped him, making Lin Feng feel a dangerous aura. He used the instant transmission ability and quickly shuttled out. "Kid, you won't be able to escape." The Sky Emperor's expression was indifferent as he slapped at the void on his left. Lin Feng flew out from that void. He was blasted out by the Sky Emperor's palm. Lin Feng's expression was abnormally ugly. This grandson of the Sky Emperor was too powerful. He was afraid that he would be in danger today. The Sky Emperor continued to walk towards Lin Feng, wanting to quickly suppress Lin Feng. However, at this moment, the Sky Emperor's eyes narrowed slightly. He turned his head and looked at the forest on his right. Suddenly, the Sky Emperor saw an outrageously beautiful young man who looked to be 16 or 17 years old was walking over. There were many bells hanging on the young man's body, so when he walked, there would be a tinkling sound. It was crisp and pleasant. If one looked closely, one would see that the young man with red lips and white teeth was not a young man at all. He was a female cultivator disguised as a man. The Red World Fairy. The Red World Fairy was here. Lin Feng was too excited to see his first wife, the Red World Fairy, arrive. "Who are you?" The Sky Emperor looked at the Red World Fairy and asked, "I am the Red World Fairy." "No, it's the Red World Fairy." Lin Feng corrected her. The Red World Fairy couldn't help but glare at Lin Feng when she heard Lin Feng's words. It was as if she would teach Lin Feng a lesson if he dared to say anything else to Lin Feng. The Red World Fairy. I've never heard of her. However, if you leave today, I can be friends with you, the Sky Emperor said. He obviously felt that the Red World Fairy was not simple and wanted to rope in the Red World Fairy. The Sky Emperor believed in her. A smart person would know how to choose. The Red World Fairy suddenly laughed. "Did you know that he and I are both cultivators from the 9 states? The Red World Fairy pointed at Lin Feng and said, "What kind of friendship is this?" The Sky Emperor said indifferently, "Did he have to help the other person because they were from the same place?" Obviously, this did not make sense. The Red World Fairy's reason was very lame in the Sky Emperor's eyes. "In my opinion, that's enough," the Red World Fairy said. "Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The Sky Emperor's eyes suddenly turned cold. Then, the Sky Emperor's body swayed, and in the next moment, he appeared in front of the Red World Fairy. Then, he blasted a palm toward the Red World Fairy. The power of such a terrifying palm strike was naturally extremely shocking. The Red World Fairy's expression was indifferent. She also blasted out a palm and collided with the Sky Emperor's palm. Thump, thump, venerable immortal red dust, and the Heavenly Emperor were evenly matched. Although the Sky Emperor in front of her was not the Sky Emperor's true body, he had integrated the power of the ancient weapon, so his combat power was extremely terrifying. Not bad, not bad. Although your cultivation level has not increased from the combat power just now, you're almost at the Tao Immortal Realm. The Sky Emperor looked at the Red World Fairy and said, "An Essence Tao Golden Sage was a fourth heaven true immortal. During the great battle between the 9 states and the myriad races, the Red World Fairy could contend with cultivators at the Imperial Lord level. However, it had only been more than 100 years since the great battle of the 9 states, and the Red World Fairy's combat power had reached the Tao Immortal Realm. It was unbelievable." Chapter 46, 27. Of course, the Red World Fairy had always been an extremely heaven-defying existence. Back then, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven for others to find one of the 3,000 great Taos. However, the Red World Fairy had already cultivated 3,000 types of 3,000 great Taos. It could be seen how extraordinary the Red World Fairy was. Although it was surprising that she could have such combat strength, it was not unacceptable. It was not surprising that this kind of thing happened to the Red World Fairy. The Red World Fairy did have such an ability. The ancient weapon formed by fusing them really can't be compared to a real ancient weapon. If it were a real ancient weapon, your combat strength would be more than this. The Red World Fairy said indifferently. After hearing the Red World Fairy's words, the Sky Emperor suddenly sneered, because the Red World Fairy's words seemed to be a little disdainful of the current him. "Don't be too arrogant. In my opinion, killing you is not a problem at all," the Sky Emperor said coldly. Hearing this, the Red World Fairy's face suddenly showed a sneer. She said, "Then let's try it. 8 Desolation Fist." The Sky Emperor's expression was indifferent. He stepped forward and punched out. An ancient and terrifying aura spread out. 8 Desolation Fist, an extremely heaven-defying divine ability. After this divine ability was used, it condensed the divine power of desolation. When the 8 Desolation Fist was used, it seemed to be able to destroy the world. Facing the Sky Emperor's attack, the Red World Fairy slapped out a palm. The power of karma lingered on the Red World Fairy's palm. The Red World Fairy's palm was a supreme palm technique that was comprehended from the great Tao of karma. This palm was called the palm of karma. Bang! Accompanied by the sound of a violent collision, the Red World Fairy and the Sky Emperor's palm collided. Their collision was terrifying to the extreme, and cracks appeared in the surrounding void. The laws of the undying realm were very powerful. Only a battle between true immortals could break the void of the undying realm. This strike, the Red World Fairy and Sky King were still evenly matched, but the Red World Fairy's causal power kept going into Sky King's body. Lin Feng immediately felt that Heavenly Emperor's power was starting to weaken. Moreover, the Celestial Emperor seemed to be unable to maintain his current state. After all, the Celestial Emperor was formed by merging his consciousness with the ancient weapon, and the ancient weapon was formed by merging 2 weapons together. Once the ancient weapon was split into 2, even the Celestial Arch would not be able to maintain his current state. Everything in the world has its cause and effect. The cycle of cause and effect is endless. The Red World Fairy chanted an incantation. Crack, crack. The sound of bones cracking came from the Sky Emperor's body, but it wasn't actually the sound of bones cracking. It was the sound of two weapons separating. This is the power of cause and effect. To be able to cultivate the path of cause and effect to this extent is truly incredible. Even the ancient monks of Buddhism might not be able to cultivate the path of cause and effect to such a deep level. You are truly a powerful figure, but to this emperor, you are still too immature. Now, I will let you know how powerful this emperor is. Sky King looked at the Red World Fairy with an indifferent expression. Then, Sky King stepped toward the Red World Fairy. I am the Lord of all heavens, the Lord of all living beings, the Lord of all heavens, the Lord of all worlds, the Lord of all heavens and the universe. I am supreme. Remember, the divine ability I am using is called Myriad Worlds Worshipping. All living beings of all worlds, all must worship me. Sky King's voice was very cold. He was like an immortal god. When he used that divine ability, Sky King became the Lord of all heavens. That kind of pressure was really too terrifying. Anyone who faced Sky King would have the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. Sky King's divine ability was too domineering. Sky King's palm blasted toward the Red World Fairy. Terrifying pressure spread out. The Red World Fairy's body was motionless. After seeing this scene, Lin Feng's expression changed slightly. Could it be? The Red World Fairy was intimidated by Sky King's divine ability, so she could not attack. This was how strange the Myriad Worlds worshipping God art was. First, it released a terrifying pressure to intimidate the opponent. There were too few cultivators who could resist this kind of pressure. After being enveloped by this pressure, one's body would be unable to move, and they would not even be able to think of resisting. When the time came, they would become a living target and could only watch themselves take the Sky King's terrifying attack. But there was no way to resist at all. This feeling was naturally enough to drive people crazy. Even if a cultivator could resist Sky King's divine ability, their combat power would be greatly affected. They might only be able to use 30 to 40% of their combat power, and at most 60 to 60%. At that time, they would still be unable to fight Sky King. So, Sky King's divine ability was too powerful, and it made people despair. But soon, Lin Feng felt that the Red World Fairy should have the power to resist, right? The next moment, Sky King's attack blasted onto the Red World Fairy's body. The Red World Fairy's body directly dissipated. The next moment, the Red World Fairy appeared 100 meters away. Just then, the Red World Fairy silently dodged Sky King's attack. Sure enough, as Lin Feng guessed, the Red World Fairy's methods were extremely brilliant. How could she be killed so easily by Sky King? The Red World Fairy walked step by step towards Sky King. Then, something shocking happened. The Red World Fairy's body actually began to split. 1 became 2, 2 became 3, 3 became 4. In the end, the Red World Fairy became 9. Every one of them. They were all no different from the Red World Fairy. It was impossible to tell which was the Red World Fairy and which was the Red World Fairy's body. When one divides into 9, one's power will also be weakened. You want to die too slowly? Is that why you want to die faster? Sky King looked at the Red World Fairy with contempt. The Red World Fairy sneered. She did not argue with Sky King. All 9 immortal venerables charged toward the heavenly emperor. These 9, the Red World Fairy displayed the Tao of fate, predestination, karma, reincarnation, creation, yin, yang, disaster, space, and time. Their attacks were extremely terrifying and heaven-defying. They instantly attacked Sky King. Sky King condensed the Four Corners world. He wanted to use this divine ability to resolve the attacks of the 9, the Red World Fairy. but Sky King failed. The Four Corners world he condensed was destroyed by the Red World Fairy's attack. Then, the Red World Fairy's body bombarded Sky King's body. Sky King was directly beaten back to his original form and turned into an ancient weapon. And this ancient weapon could not continue to maintain the form of an ancient weapon. In the end, it split into two. Immortal Honored Red Dust unleashed a powerful dermic power to suppress the two weapons. She seemed to want to suppress the two treasures, the demon slaughtering saber, and the immortal slaying sword. Chapter 46:28. The Red World Fairy, you win. I'll remember you. The Heavenly Emperor's voice could be heard from the two weapons. The Heavenly Emperor had been beaten back to his original form by the Red World Fairy. Clearly, the Heavenly Emperor was somewhat hysterical now. He couldn't accept all this. In his eyes, this was a great humiliation. You talk too much. The Red World Fairy sneered and continued to suppress the two weapons. However, an energy ball flew out from each of the weapons. The two energy balls quickly converged together. Then it exploded. The destructive power spread out in all directions. The power of the explosion was terrifying to the extreme. It made people pale with fright. Clearly, this was the trump card that the Heavenly Emperor had left behind. One had to admit that the Heavenly Emperor was very good at scheming. No matter what happened, he would plan every step. This was the Heavenly Emperor. To be able to become the Heavenly Emperor, he was naturally not a simple person. Lin Feng, the Red World Fairy, and Dugu Ya quickly retreated. They avoided the terrifying destructive power of the two energy balls. When the energy completely dissipated, the two weapons and immortal sovereign coiling cloud had disappeared. They escaped. Lin Feng couldn't help but frown slightly. However, although one person escaped, the heavenly war god was killed. This was a great harvest. Lin Feng cut off the heavenly war god's head. Then, with a flick of his finger, heavenly fire flew out. The heavenly fire enveloped the heavenly war god's body and burned it to ashes. In the end, only the heavenly war god's source energy was left floating in the void. This was the source energy of a true immortal. It was incomparably precious. Lin Feng kept the source energy of the heavenly war god. Venerable Red Dust, on the other hand, walked into the distance. "Fairy, wait!" Lin Feng shouted. The Red World Fairy ignored Lin Feng and quickly left. However, after the Red World Fairy left, a threatening voice rang out in Lin Feng's mind. "Today, there are people here, so I'll give you face. If you dare call me a fairy again, I won't be polite to you." Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. The Red World Fairy was actually quite cute. The Red World Fairy was really good to him. Otherwise, she would not have specially come here. Duguya looked at Lin Feng and said, "That woman is the Red World Fairy of the 9 provinces. Lin Feng nodded and said, "That's right. Uncle Dugu, have you heard of her?" Duguya smiled and said, "Of course I've heard of her, but I've never seen her before. I never thought that there would be such a heaven-defying person in this world." Back then, the 9 provinces was unable to break through to the Emperor realm due to the great changes in the heavens and earth. The Red World Fairy was suppressed for thousands of years because of this. If not for the delay of thousands of years, the Red World Fairy would be even more heaven-defying now. Lin Feng said. Duguya said, "There are gains and losses." Lin Feng pondered Duguya's words. It was indeed as Duguya had said. There were gains and losses in everything. Back then, the Red World Fairy was restricted by the laws of the heavens and earth and was unable to break through. However, she must have gained something in other aspects, right? Let's quickly return to the battlefield, Lin Feng said. Duguya nodded and quickly flew towards the battlefield with Lin Feng. At this moment, the battle was extremely intense. The cultivator army of the Four Territory Alliance had the advantage in numbers, so they had gained a great advantage. After Lin Feng arrived, he raised the head in his hand. Then he shouted, "The heavenly war god has been killed, and the Pan-Yun Immortal Venerable has escaped. Brothers and sisters of the Sinner's Blood Alliance, what are we waiting for? Slaughter the cultivator army of the Four Territory Alliance. It's time to make a name for ourselves." Lin Feng's shout instantly attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked at the head in Lin Feng's hand and discovered that it was indeed the head of the heavenly war god. Everyone's expression changed greatly. The cultivator army of the Sinner's Blood Alliance was ecstatic and excited. One of their true immortals had died, and the other had escaped. Without their commander, their morale would definitely be in chaos. This was the best opportunity for them to counterattack. On the other hand, the cultivator army of the Four Territory Alliance was in complete chaos. One of their true immortals had died, and the other had escaped. The enemy was too terrifying. If the battle continued, they might also die here. This was especially true for the cultivator armies of the Chaos Sword Domain and Nine Deities Domain. They were not willing to participate in this battle. They had no choice but to come because of the Heavenly Emperor's decree. Now, of the two true immortals sent by the Heavenly Emperor, one had died, and the other had escaped. There was no need for them to stay here and risk their lives for the Heavenly Emperor. Cultivator army of the Chaos Sword Domain, retreat immediately. Domain Lord of the Nine Deities Domain, retreat immediately. The higher-ups of the Chaos Sword Domain and Nine Deities Domain shouted. Then the cultivator armies of the two sides gathered and fled in the direction of the Chaos Sword Domain and Nine Deities Domain. On the other side, the cultivator armies of the Black Sand region and the Weak Water region had also gathered. They were fleeing in the direction of the Black Sand region and the Weak Water region. Lin Feng knew that the Black Sand region and the Weak Water region were loyal to the Heavenly Emperor. As for the Chaos Sword Domain and Nine Deities Domain, they were independent powers. They were not loyal to the Heavenly Emperor. The only reason they sent out their troops was because they could not disobey the Heavenly Emperor's decree. Therefore, Lin Feng did not give the order to pursue the Chaos Sword Domain and Nine Deities Domain. Leave a way out. Let's meet again in the future. There was no need to fight to the death with them. However, Lin Feng was not so courteous to the Black Sand region and the Weak Water region. He and Dugu each led an army to pursue the cultivator armies of the Black Sand region and the Weak Water region. Although Lin Feng only led an army of 500,000 cultivators in pursuit, he defeated the Black Sand region's army of 1.5 million. The Domain Lord of the Black Sand region had 7 sons. This time, he had brought 4 of them with him to exterminate the Sinner's Blood Alliance. However, as they fled, 2 of them were killed by Lin Feng with the Hui Bao. One of the 2 killed was Chu Yunlin. Lin Feng was all too familiar with this guy. Back then, he besieged the Sacred Spirit tribe. He'd also pursued Lin Feng and was a quasi-true immortal. Now, he died at Lin Feng's hands. The other was a sky immortal, Chu Yunsen. He was also killed by Lin Feng. Lin Feng had originally planned to kill the Black Sand region's domain lord, but in the end, he'd let him escape. In the end, the Black Sand region's domain lord led the 300,000 survivors and fled. The remaining 1.5 million soldiers were all killed, including the cultivator armies that had fallen earlier. This time, the Black Sand region had mobilized 3 million cultivators. They'd actually lost over 2,700,000, causing the Black Sand region's strength to plummet. Lin Feng led his army to clean up the battlefield. then returned to the Sin capital. Not long after Lin Feng's return, Duguya also led his army back. Duguya's side was even more ruthless. The domain lord of the Weakwater region only led 30,000 people to flee, while the rest were all killed. Chapter 46:29. Big news. Shocking news. The Four Territory Alliance suffered heavy losses in the Battle of Sin Realm. Their casualties exceeded 8 million. Moreover, the true immortal war god Shurtian was killed, and the immortal sovereign Coiling Cloud escaped with injuries. Undying Realm. Various regions. News of the Battle of Sin Realm quickly spread, whether it was in ancient cities, ordinary cities, or small towns. Countless people felt that the Sin Realm Alliance was doomed. After all, the Celestial Emperor had mobilized an army of 12 million cultivators. Moreover, he had mobilized 2 true immortals. The Celestial Emperor had even bestowed upon them 2 supreme treasures, the Devil's Slaughtering Saber and the Immortal Slaying Sword. When combined, these 2 supreme treasures were equivalent to ancient weapons. With such a large army and 2 true immortals holding down the fort, the Celestial Emperor had been defeated. How could they have lost? And yet, they had lost the battle. It was an extremely bitter defeat. This news can't be fake, right? Could it be that someone is playing a prank, and that's why they spread fake news? When the news spread, many people began to doubt it. They felt that it couldn't be true. But soon, another piece of news spread. The news had been verified. The Four Territories Alliance had suffered a crushing defeat. They had suffered heavy casualties. War god Shurtian had also been killed. Moreover, a crystal ball of light had spread. A blurry image was imprinted on the crystal ball. It was a cultivator holding a head. The cultivator's appearance was blurry because Lin Feng's fortune was so great that the crystal ball couldn't imprint his appearance. However, the image of war god Shurtian's head was clearly imprinted. When the crystal ball was circulated, the news was confirmed. Even if they didn't believe it, they had to believe it. This caused a huge commotion. The Sacred Legion had been destroyed by the Sinner's Blood Alliance led by Lin Feng. Now, the Four Territories Alliance had almost been annihilated. It was truly inconceivable. The Sinner's Blood Alliance definitely has more than one true immortal expert. That's right. It seems that the Sinner's Blood Alliance also has a true immortal expert who didn't die. I reckon they've come out this time as well. There's also that Lin Feng. His father is Lin Feng. Back then, his father was a heaven-defying existence. Among his followers, there were true immortals. Maybe someone at that level will come out to help Lin Feng. Such a situation is indeed possible. No wonder the Sinner's Blood Alliance was able to achieve victory in both wars. That's because the forces behind them are extremely powerful. The world only sees their surface strength, including the Celestial Emperor. This is the fundamental reason why the Sacred Legion and the allied forces of the 4 regions were defeated. Now that the allied forces of the 4 regions have suffered such heavy losses, and the Celestial Emperor has lost 2 true immortals, the Celestial Emperor probably won't continue to mobilize his army against the Sinner's Blood Alliance in the near future. After all, it's extremely difficult to fight across multiple regions, and the region lords won't agree to it. Now that the feudal vassals are divided, the Celestial Emperor's prestige is no longer the same as before. In the final analysis, it's because many factions have hidden experts who have emerged, so they don't fear the Celestial Emperor as much as before. Once the Celestial Emperor's orders are issued, it's even more difficult to carry them out. The Sinner's Blood Alliance's control over the Sinner's realm is irreversible. The descendants of the Sinner's Blood Alliance have been suppressed for so many years. Now, they can finally hold their heads high. This Lin Feng is also quite a character. He actually led the Sinner's Blood Alliance to defeat the Celestial Emperor's army twice. Truly incredible. Actually, I feel that although this Lin Feng is very powerful, he's not as godly as the legends say. It's said that his cultivation isn't particularly high. The reason he can be so fierce is because of the Ho Yi Bao and the sun-slaying divine arrows. Without the Bao and the sun-slaying divine arrows, there's a huge gap between him and the top geniuses like the 8 young masters. On the surface, Lin Feng led the Sinner's Blood Alliance to defeat the Sacred Legion and the allied forces of the 4 territories. However, in reality, Lin Feng is only a figure pushed forward by the powerhouses behind him. He's equivalent to a puppet. The real decision-makers should be the powerhouses behind him, not Lin Feng. I also feel the same. Although this Lin Feng is somewhat extraordinary, he's not as powerful as everyone says. The rise of the Sinner's Blood Alliance isn't due to him. However, he's still a sinner with the imperial blood. Being pushed to the front by others can indeed play a role in condensing the sinner's blood. Currently, the cultivators of the various territories in the Undying Realm were discussing the previous battle. Naturally, it was inevitable that Lin Feng would be involved. Some people felt that Lin Feng was really too powerful. Lin Feng played an extremely crucial role in destroying the Sacred Legion and defeating the allied forces of the 4 territories. However, there were also people who snorted disdainfully. They felt that Lin Feng was just a puppet. Everything about Lin Feng was just a legend. The real Lin Feng was nothing at all. And the majority of people believed in this point of view. After all, destroying the Sacred Legion and defeating the allied forces of the 4 territories was really too inconceivable. A person who could lead such a great reversal, and 2 consecutive great reversals at that, was definitely not someone to be trifled with. If it was a true immortal powerhouse, everyone would still be able to accept it. However, if it was Lin Feng, it was too inconceivable. Everyone couldn't accept it. Perhaps it was because they felt that this matter was too inconceivable, that they were unwilling to believe it from the bottom of their hearts. Lin Feng didn't know what those cultivators were discussing. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Heavenly Emperor Palace. The Heavenly Emperor sat on the Emperor's throne. His expression was extremely gloomy. In the main hall, 2 people stood. One was Immortal Pan Yun. The other was an old man. That old man was obviously also a true immortal. However, no one knew where that old man had come from. In the void, one figure after another appeared. 17 figures appeared one after another. This was a projection technique. Surrendering from an endless distance was an extremely terrifying method. Your humble servant greets your majesty. One expert after another bowed to the Heavenly Emperor. The origins of these 17 figures were extremely frightening. They weren't ordinary people. They were the commanders of the other 17 legions under the Heavenly Emperor's command. In truth, the legions under the Heavenly Emperor's command weren't very strong. For example, the Sacred Legion only had about 10 million cultivators, while the strongest legion had 80 million cultivators. The difference was extremely great. The Sacred Legion only ranked 17th among the 18 legions under the Heavenly Emperor's command. Dispense with the formalities. The Heavenly Emperor said with a gloomy expression, hearing the Heavenly Emperor's words. Only then did the projections of the 17 experts stand up. Chapter 46:30. Everyone should have heard of the situation in Sin Realm, right? What do you all think? The Celestial Emperor asked. These people were all his trusted subordinates, and all of them were extremely powerful. Now, all of the major powers had their own powerful beings, but the Celestial Thearcha's position was still stable because of the deterrence of these trusted subordinates. If the Celestial Emperor had been alone, the other powers would have been even more subservient to him. After all, a single tree couldn't hold up the sky. No matter how powerful someone was, they would need helpers. This was especially true for the world lords. A legion commander said, "We've already heard of this matter, but we're not particularly familiar with the Sinner's Blood Alliance, so we can't analyze the situation of the Sinner's Blood Alliance. Since Immortal Venerable Coiling Cloud is participating in this battle, let Immortal Venerable Coiling Cloud explain the Sinner's Blood Alliance." The one who spoke was none other than the Northern Wilderness War God. He was a terrifying existence with an army of 80 million cultivators under his command. The Northern Wilderness War God could be considered a vassal, but he was a vassal who was extremely loyal to the Celestial Emperor. Immortal Sovereign Coiling Cloud glanced at the Celestial Emperor, who nodded slightly. Lin Baiqian's son, Lin Feng, isn't that much of a threat. After all, his cultivation hasn't increased. However, Lin Feng has several powerful figures behind him. For example, Duguya. I'm sure everyone has heard of him. The others nodded. A legion commander once said, "Back then, Duguya served Lin Baiqian for a period of time. However, it is said that something happened to his body. Has he recovered?" The immortal Exalt Coiling Cloud nodded and said, "Yes, he has already recovered to the true immortal realm. Moreover, he possesses the ancient weapon, the Sun-Moon Celestial Sword. Thus, his combat strength is extremely terrifying. I presume that with Duguya's natural talent and the inheritance he obtained, his cultivation will rise greatly in a short period of time. However, Duguya isn't the most terrifying one. The most terrifying one is a woman called Immortal Exalt Hongchen. She's only a little over 4,000 years old, but her combat strength is at least at the Tao Immortal realm. Moreover, I feel that she didn't use her full strength when she attacked earlier. What? There's such a heaven-defying character in this world." After hearing Immortal Venerable Coiling Cloud's words, the expressions of the 17 captains couldn't help but change. It was no wonder that they were so shocked. The Red World Fairy was simply too heaven-defying. Pan Yun Immortal Venerable bitterly smiled and nodded. "That's right, this person is indeed so heaven-defying. Which clan does this Immortal Venerable Hongchen belong to? Is it also Sinner's Blood?" The Northern Wilderness War God asked. Immortal Sovereign Pan Yun said, "I don't know if it's Sinner's Blood, but this woman is a human cultivator." "Are there any other experts?" The Northern Wilderness War God asked. Immortal Sovereign Coiling Cloud said, "These 2 experts appeared during the previous war. I wonder if the Sinner's bloodline has any more old antiques?" A legion commander said decisively, "There definitely is. Never underestimate the experts of the Sin's bloodline at any time." Now that everyone has a better understanding of the situation, I wish to attack the Sinner's Blood Alliance a 3rd time. This time, I plan to mobilize an army from your 17 legions. What do you think? The Heavenly Emperor looked at the 17 legions. At this time, a legion commander said, "Your Majesty, it wouldn't be a problem to mobilize the troops during normal times. However, the ancient demon domain that we are monitoring has been acting strangely. Over the years, the experts of the ancient demon domain have emerged one after another. In addition, the ancient demon domain itself has several powerful experts. Moreover, the ancient demon domain has always been hostile to our heavenly court. Now that our army is pressuring the ancient demon domain doesn't dare to act strangely. If we mobilize a part of the army, the ancient demon domain will definitely act." Another legion commander said, "Your Majesty, it's the same for the chaotic heavens domain that we're monitoring. The people in the chaotic heavens domain have always been restless. Now that they're acting strangely, We really can't mobilize an army to attack the Sinner's Blood Alliance. The other Legion commanders expressed their opinions as well. They all expressed that it was very difficult to mobilize an army to attack the Sinner's Blood Alliance. In truth, they weren't trying to avoid this matter. Just as they said, the situation on their side was indeed quite tense. The Heavenly Emperor clearly knew this as well. He looked at the Northern Wilderness War God and said, "Northern Wilderness War God, what do you think of the Sinner's Blood Alliance?" The Northern Wilderness War God said, "Your Majesty, the Sinner Blood Alliance has already reached a certain level of power, so it won't be easy to wipe them out. We need to strengthen our defenses elsewhere, and we can't mobilize our troops to suppress the Sinner Blood Alliance. As a result, we are in a dilemma. However, there are priorities. The Sinner Blood Alliance's foundation isn't particularly stable yet. Moreover, as long as we kill Lin Feng, the Sinner Blood Alliance will collapse on its own. Since that's the case, there's no need for us to launch a full-scale attack on the Sinner Blood Alliance. It's better to think of a way to kill Lin Feng." Northern Wilderness War God, I agree with your suggestion. Following that, another Legion commander agreed. Actually, Heaven Emperor wanted to attack the Sinner's Alliance because he wanted to be invincible and destroy the Sinner's Alliance. Only then would he be able to display his boundless might. Killing Lin Feng and breaking up the Sinner's Blood Alliance was indeed a very good method, but it would not be able to display the boundless might of heaven. Therefore, he did not agree with the Northern Wilderness War God's suggestion. However, Heaven Emperor realized that after the Northern Wilderness War God finished speaking, the Legion commanders all expressed their opinions. They all supported the Northern Wilderness War God. This angered Heaven Emperor. He was a suspicious person, and the Northern Wilderness War God's prestige seemed to be too high. Of course, Heaven Emperor was very shrewd. He would not voice out his dissatisfaction. The Northern Wilderness War God was different from the other Legion commanders. Firstly, the Northern Wilderness War God's background was extraordinary. Even Heaven Emperor was an outsider, but the Northern Wilderness War God's family had taken root in the Undying Realm for countless years. Even now, the Northern Wilderness War God's family still controlled more than 10 domains in the Undying Realm. One could imagine how powerful the Northern Wilderness War God's family was. Heaven Emperor said, "Since everyone agrees with the Northern Wilderness War God's suggestion, then it's decided. All right, you can all leave now." Yes, the Northern Wilderness War God and the others bowed, and then their bodies disappeared. Only Heaven Emperor, the immortal sovereign Pan Yun, and another elder were left in the hall. The immortal sovereign Pan Yun said, "Your Majesty, those Legion commanders seem to be too respectful to the Northern Wilderness War God." Heaven Emperor knew what the immortal sovereign Pan Yun wanted to say. He narrowed his eyes and said, "The Northern Wilderness War God is a person of virtue and prestige. It's normal for the Legion commanders to be respectful to him." The immortal sovereign Pan Yun and the other elders saw the change in Heaven Emperor's expression, and their hearts trembled. When Heaven Emperor narrowed his eyes, it was usually when his heart was filled with killing intent. Could it be that Heaven Emperor wanted to kill the Northern Wilderness War God? Chapter 46, 31. What has the Crown Prince been up to recently? Heaven Emperor asked. The old man replied, "The Crown Prince is in seclusion, preparing to break through to the true immortal realm." The old man was the general manager of the heavenly court. His name was Dong Ping. Said Tian Di, the celestial emperor, "Let him continue meditating in seclusion. Call the great prince and the other princes. I intend to give them the task of killing Lin Feng. I also want to see how strong they are." "Yes," Dong Ping replied. then quickly left to convey the Heaven Emperor's fate. Lin Feng did not know what was happening in the Heaven Emperor Palace. Currently, Lin Feng was in seclusion. Lin Feng intended to refine the source energy of the heavenly stone War God. After all, it was the source energy of a true immortal expert. After refining it, his cultivation would definitely increase significantly. After refining the heavenly divine king's source energy, Lin Feng's cultivation had risen to the 5th layer of the Emperor Lord realm. As for Lin Feng's soul, it had stopped at the 5th layer of the earth immortal realm. This time, refining the heavenly stone War God's source energy did not increase as much as before. Lin Feng's cultivation rose by 2 levels, stopping at the 7th layer of the Emperor Lord realm. Lin Feng's soul rose by 5 levels, stopping at the 10th layer of the earth immortal realm. The reason why this increase was not as great as before was because of 2 reasons. First, when Lin Feng's cultivation rose, the consumption of the source energy would be even greater. The second reason was because Lin Feng had already refined the original strength of a real celestial. His body was resistant to the original strength of a real celestial. It was like taking a pill. If you took too many pills, your body would become resistant to the original strength of a real celestial. Eating more of the medicine would no longer have any effect. It was the same for the true immortal source energy. However, being able to increase his cultivation by 2 levels and his soul by 5 levels already made Lin Feng very satisfied. After exiting seclusion, the Sinner Blood Alliance was developing in an orderly manner. More and more experts came to join the Sinner Blood Alliance. On this day, an old man wearing coarse clothes came to the Sinner Blood Alliance. This old man deceived everyone and directly came to Lin Feng's residence. Lin Feng seemed to sense something. He walked out of the room and saw the ordinary-looking old man. However, Lin Feng wouldn't judge a book by its cover. "Senior, this way, please," Lin Feng said. "Yes, they really look alike." The old man couldn't help but sigh. "Like what?" Lin Feng asked curiously. "You are very similar to your mother," the old man said. Hearing this, Lin Feng's expression changed greatly. He did not expect the old man before him to know his mother. Who was he? How did he know his mother? What does it have to do with me? "Senior, may I know your name?" Lin Feng asked the old man. "Wang Mingchuan. Have you heard of it?" the old man asked with a smile as he looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng revealed an awkward expression. He had indeed never heard of this name. "It seems your father has never mentioned this old man to you," the old man said. Lin Feng said, "Back then, my father rarely told me about the past. Perhaps he was worried that knowing too much would not benefit me." Wang Mingchuan nodded and then said, "Your mother has been with me since she was 4 years old. She didn't leave until she was 18 years old. When your mother had an accident, I was at the hidden gate of life and death, so I didn't know the situation at that time. When I came out, everything was done." Speaking up to this point, Wang Mingchuan could not help but sigh. Lin Feng finally understood his relationship with Wang Mingchuan. According to seniority, Wang Mingchuan should be his grandmaster. Lin Feng bowed to Wang Mingchuan and said, "I did not expect Senior to be this junior's grandmaster." Junior Lin Feng pays his respects to grandmaster. After saying that, Lin Feng bowed 3 times to Wang Mingchuan. Back then, his mother had followed Wang Mingchuan since she was 4. This meant that there was more than just a master-disciple relationship between them. There was also the grace of raising him. "I am relieved to see you grow up healthily." Wang Mingchuan patted Lin Feng's shoulder. Lin Feng asked, "Grandmaster, what happened back then? Why did my mother follow you since she was young. Wang Mingchuan said, "It's a long story. Back then, I had a deep relationship with the ancestor of the sovereign clan. In fact, your grandfather had followed me for many years. One rainy night, your grandfather carried your mother to my residence and handed her to me. He then left in the rain and never appeared again." My grandfather, Lin Feng, could not help but mutter to himself. In Lin Feng's memories, there was nothing about his grandfather. In fact, Lin Feng knew very little about his mother. After all, when they parted, Lin Feng was still an infant. "Yes, your grandfather is extremely talented. I've never seen someone as talented as him. He has completely awakened the bloodline of the sovereign clan and completed the 8th revolution at such a young age. He wanted to complete the 9th revolution, but you should know that the number 9 is very inauspicious. That's why I dissuaded him. I want him to complete the 9th and 10th revolutions at the same time. If he can complete the 9th and 10th revolutions, then your grandfather will be able to resolve the inauspiciousness of the 9th revolution." But then something happened that even I don't know about. Your grandfather left in a hurry. Before he left, I tried to ask him, but he didn't say anything. Wang Mingchuan had a vexed expression at this point. If I had forcefully stopped him, perhaps the situation would have been different. I'm sure the ancestor wouldn't have been able to stop him if he wanted to leave. Lin Feng said. "Yes." Wang Mingchuan sighed. He continued, "Your mother is extremely beautiful. Perhaps it's because your grandfather's bloodline has completely recovered the power of his ancestral bloodline. So your mother's bloodline is extremely powerful. Your mother's cultivation progressed very quickly, and she's very lively. After she grew up, she wanted to go out and travel. I didn't want to agree at first, but she begged me again and again. In the end, I agreed. And during one of her travels, she met your father and brought him to me. At that time, your father was very young and had a good personality. I could see that he loved your mother a lot. So when he told me that he wanted to marry your mother, I agreed. I personally held the wedding for them. Your father wanted to return to the clan and hold another wedding with the blessings of his clansmen, so they returned to 9 continents. On the way back, something happened. Chapter 46:32. Lin Feng chatted with Wang Mingchuan for a long time. He learned from Wang Mingchuan that Wang Mingchuan had been searching for his mother's whereabouts all these years. However, how could it be so easy to find her? Therefore, although he had been to many places, he had never been able to find his ancestor. This made Wang Mingchuan feel quite helpless. Wang Mingchuan hoped that he could gain something. However, he could only return in disappointment, because he couldn't find the whereabouts of Lin Feng's mother, Ji Long. Wang Mingchuan was worried that something would happen to Lin Feng, so he went to the 9 prefectures. However, when Wang Mingchuan arrived at the 9 prefectures, Lin Feng had already left for a long time. Wang Mingchuan searched all the way and finally came to the Undying Realm. Now, the two finally met. Lin Feng was very happy to see Wang Mingchuan. However, when he thought of his mother, Lin Feng's mood couldn't help but become gloomy. "Now that I can see that you can take charge, it's really gratifying. I'm sure that if your mother knew what you've done, she would be very happy," Wang Mingchuan said. Lin Feng clenched his fists and said, "I will definitely save my mother." "I believe that you can do it," Wang Mingchuan said. Lin Feng arranged a residence for Wang Mingchuan. Naturally, Lin Feng was very happy that the Sinner Blood Alliance had such a powerful expert like Wang Mingchuan. Lin Feng introduced Wang Mingchuan to Duguya. After learning that Wang Mingchuan was Lin Feng's ancestor, Duguya was obviously very surprised. Duguya had never seen Wang Mingchuan before. Then, Lin Feng brought the upper echelons of the Sinner Blood Alliance to visit Wang Mingchuan's ancestor. After hearing that Wang Mingchuan was Lin Feng's ancestor, the upper echelons of the Sinner Blood Alliance were very shocked. Only then did they know that there were many experts behind Lin Feng, one after another. However, this made the upper echelons of the Sinner Blood Alliance very happy. The more experts behind Lin Feng, the higher the chances of the Sinner Blood Alliance surviving. On this day, Dugu found Lin Feng and told Lin Feng that he planned to leave. Lin Feng naturally didn't want Dugu to leave, but since Dugu said this, he must have thought it through carefully before saying it. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't urge Dugu to stay. Everyone has their own business. Lin Feng asked, "Uncle Dugu, where do you plan to go?" Dugu said, "I plan to look for your father and see if I can find him." "Please, Uncle Dugu." Lin Feng bowed towards Dugu. Dugu supported Lin Feng and said, "Feng, cultivate well. Don't put yourself in danger. Senior Wang's strength is unfathomable. With him overseeing the Sinner's Blood Alliance, it's enough to deter countless experts and make them not dare to act rashly. If I find your father, I'll send you the news as soon as possible." Feng understands. This journey will definitely not be peaceful. Uncle Dugu, you must be careful. Lin Feng said solemnly. Dugu was one of Lin Feng's closest relatives. The world of cultivators was filled with danger. Even true immortals wouldn't dare to say that they could act without fear. They didn't know when they would be able to meet again after parting this time. They also didn't know if they would be able to meet again. Moreover, Dugu had gone to find his father. If this matter was known by the mastermind, they would definitely attack Dugu. Therefore, Lin Feng's heart was filled with worry. In the world of cultivators, there were too many instances where a short separation would turn into an eternal one. "I will." Dugu patted Lin Feng's shoulder and left. Lin Feng stayed in the Sinner's Blood Alliance for a month. He planned to return to Black Sand region. This was because Lin Feng still had to make a trip to Tu Tiange. Previously, Lin Feng had accepted a mission from Tu Tiange. Now that Tu Tiange's mission had been completed, Lin Feng had to return to hand in the mission. Tu Tiange was an organization that had existed for a very long time. In addition, they had a very deep relationship with his father, Lin Beitian. Therefore, Lin Feng hoped to have a deeper relationship with Tu Tiange, especially the leader of Tu Tiange. Who was this person? Lin Feng was very curious. This time, Lin Feng left with Du Zhu, the evil sovereign sage, and the two ghost emperors. 3 months later, Lin Feng returned to the Xia family village. Everything in the Xia family village was proceeding in an orderly manner. Everyone was very happy to see Lin Feng return. However, the news in the village was more limited. Therefore, they didn't know what had happened in the outside world. The Snow Lady was as beautiful as ever. She was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. Lin Feng hadn't seen the Snow Lady for a long time. Therefore, after seeing the Snow Lady, he was finally relieved of his longing. Who wouldn't want to see such a delicate beauty? "Young master, you are indeed a man of 10,000 flowers. You won't let any of them go." When he was alone with Lin Feng, Du Zhu grinned. This guy had always been a shameless person. There was nothing he couldn't say. After hearing Du Zhu's words, Lin Feng kicked Du Zhu away. "Serves you right," the evil dominator saint said with a grin, as if he was rejoicing in the misfortune of others. The two ghost emperors also had gloating expressions on their faces. "I was wrong. Young master, you only pluck the immortal flowers. You can't be bothered to look at the ordinary flowers." Lin Feng said. Lin Feng said, "I realize that you are really asking for a beating." Du Zhu quickly shut up when he saw that Lin Feng was really going to beat him up. The Snow Lady fell in love with life in the Xia family village because the people there treated her very well. This was a kind of kindness that came from the bottom of her heart. Everyone treated the Snow Lady with sincerity, as if she was a family member. Evidently, all sorts of feelings welled up in the Snow Lady's heart. Ever since the tragedy of the Xia family village, the Snow Lady's life had been very sad. She had always been alone. Everyone who saw her was plotting against her, trying to capture her, or even kill her. Therefore, the Snow Lady didn't trust the outside world. She had become cold, but the people of the Xia family village gave her warmth. She felt that she was a part of the Xia family village. Lin Feng was naturally very happy to see the changes in the Snow Lady. He had always been worried that the Snow Lady would be unable to extricate herself from the pain of the past. Now, the Snow Lady had gradually walked out of her pain. Lin Feng felt gratified for everything that had happened to the Snow Lady. From now on, the Snow Lady could live like a normal person. Lin Feng stayed in the Xia family village for 3 days. Then, he brought Du Zhu, the evil sovereign sage, and the 2 ghost emperors to Sky Withering City. After arriving at Sky Withering City, Lin Feng went straight to the Wantong Trading Company to meet Meng Bingyan. Chapter 46:33. When Meng Bingyan saw Lin Feng, she smiled and said, "Lin Gongzi's actions in the Sin realm are truly shocking. When I heard about it, I was so shocked that I was speechless for a long time. Now, even the higher-ups of the Slaughtering Sky Pavilion are talking about it." Lin Feng smiled and said, "You flatter me. I've already found the Holy Spirit liquid you mentioned. Does that mean I've successfully joined the Slaughtering Sky Pavilion?" Lin Feng took out the Holy Spirit liquid and handed it to Meng Bingyan. Meng Bingyan's eyes lit up after seeing the Saint Spirit liquid. She inspected it and smiled. "It really is the Saint Spirit liquid. Young Noble is truly resourceful to be able to obtain something like the Saint Spirit liquid. Since you have the Saint Spirit liquid, Young Noble can be considered to have passed the test. Naturally, you can join the Slaughter Sky Pavilion." "Will I be able to see the Pavilion Master?" Lin Feng asked. "I can help you ask the Pavilion Master's opinion, but he's not in Heavenly Wither City right now. You'll have to wait for a while." Meng Bingyan said. Lin Feng said, "Of course. That's not a problem." Lin Feng, Du Zhu, the heretic sovereign sage, and the 2 ghost emperors settled down in the Wantong Trading Company. As for Lin Feng, he entered a space-time zone to cultivate. The cultivators in Heavenly Wither City were discussing the Sin realm and Lin Feng. However, none of them had expected the person they were discussing to be in Heavenly Wither City right now. Perhaps no one would believe that Lin Feng would dare to come to the Black Sand region. After all, the Black Sand region had lost 2,700,000 cultivators. Even 2 of the region master's sons had been killed. Lin Feng had actually dared to come to the Black Sand region after such a blood feud. The word audacious could no longer be used to describe him. In the blink of an eye, a month passed. On this day, someone arrived at the Slaughtering Sky Pavilion's headquarters. This person was the Slaughtering Sky Pavilion's Grand Elder, Sun Tianzhou. He looked to be in his 50s or 60s, but it was obvious that he had lived for a very long time. After seeing Lin Feng, Sun Tianzhou smiled and cupped his fists, saying, "I've heard a lot about young friend Lin. Today, I finally get to see young friend Lin in person. You really are a dragon among men, just as the legends say." "Elder, you flatter me," Lin Feng said modestly, but in fact, he was very happy. Who didn't like to hear good words? Lin Feng also liked it. Sun Tianzhou said, "The Pavilion Master is now at the hidden latch of life and death. It's a very important moment, so he can't see you. So he sent me here to see you." Lin Feng said, "I see. If the Pavilion Master came out of seclusion, I hope that the great elder can give me a recommendation. Sun Tianzhou said, "Of course. Young friend, perhaps you don't know much about our Slaughtering Sky Pavilion. In our Slaughtering Sky Pavilion, there is a deputy pavilion master. Now that this position is vacant, there are 9 grand elders, 36 elders, and 72 hall masters. Among the higher-ups of Slaughtering Sky Pavilion, the old pavilion master and the first grand elder are both at the true immortal realm. The remaining grand elders and 36 elders are at the quasi-true immortal realm. The 72 hall masters are at the heavenly immortal realm. There are even more experts below the heavenly immortal realm." After hearing the words of the Slaughtering Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, Lin Feng's expression changed. Slaughtering Sky Pavilion's strength was too strong, wasn't it? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Anyone who heard the strength of Slaughtering Sky Pavilion would be shocked. Lin Feng said, "How could Slaughtering Sky Pavilion have so many experts? Could they have all been recruited?" One had to know that even in a region there were many quasi-true immortals and heavenly immortals. Compared to Slaughtering Sky Pavilion, there was a huge difference. Sun Tianzhou smiled and said, "They weren't recruited. They're experts that Slaughtering Sky Pavilion has nurtured themselves." Experts that they've nurtured themselves? A look of disbelief appeared on Lin Feng's face. It might be possible for him to nurture a few or a dozen top-notch experts, but Slaughtering Sky Pavilion had too many experts. Nurturing themselves? How? Sun Tianzhou said with a smile. Slaughtering Sky Pavilion has the method to enter the time reversal world. After hearing this, Lin Feng's face revealed a look of deep shock. The time reversal world was a mysterious world. Lin Feng really wanted to enter the time reversal world. He wanted to see what kind of world it was. Is this the reason why Slaughtering Sky Pavilion has nurtured so many experts? Lin Feng couldn't help but ask curiously. Yes, Sun Tianzhou nodded. Lin Feng couldn't help but take a deep breath. He needed to work hard to calm his emotions. Now that he was considered a member of Tu Qianga, wasn't that right? Did that mean that he could enter the time reversal world? Perhaps he could raise his cultivation base in this world where time was reversed? Can I enter the time reversal world to cultivate? Lin Feng asked. Of course you can, but not now. Only the pavilion leader knows how to go to the time reversal world. Therefore, if anyone wants to go there, they need the pavilion leader's help. The pavilion leader is in a life and death situation, so he can't send you in, said Lin Feng. Sun Tianzhou said. So that's how it is, Lin Feng nodded. This time, you've helped the pavilion master greatly by obtaining the Holy Spirit liquid. Before coming, the pavilion master thought that I had brought you something. Sun Tianzhou said. Hearing that, Lin Feng couldn't help but feel curious. He wondered what Sun Tianzhou had brought him. Was this a reward for him? At this moment, Sun Tianzhou took out a few items. The first item was a yellow material. Lin Feng didn't know what it was. The second item was a jade tube. The third item was an ancient book. What are these 3 items? Lin Feng asked curiously. Sun Tianzhou said, this mysterious yellow stone was formed at the beginning of the world. It's the strongest forging material, and it's extremely rare. It's one of the pavilion master's treasures. Now that he's taken it out, it seems that the pavilion master values little friend Lin a lot. As for the jade tube, it contains the qi cultivation technique. When Lin Feng heard that, he couldn't help but be surprised. Using qi wasn't very useful for other people, but for Lin Feng, it was extremely useful. The qi cultivation technique was too precious. Brothers, Old Steamed Bun's wife's grandfather has passed away. Old Steamed Bun is going to her hometown to attend the funeral. Funerals in the countryside last 3 days.